Later, she colluded with Chu Luiyue to kill him. Others only said that she was as noble as the clouds, but they did not know that she was so vicious. At that time, almost all of Xiao Wanru's suffering in the Imperial Palace was caused by her. Going to the Yuhui nunnery to learn painting brought her a noble reputation. Unlike other misses from aristocratic families, it seemed that wealth and honor were nothing to her. She studied in the Yuhui nunnery for half a year. After that, she became the most elegant and outstanding noble lady in the capital city with a painting she gave to the Empress Dowager for her birthday. Counting the days, Xiao Yanru was still in the Yuhui nunnery on Mount Donghua at this time. Because she did not want to be disturbed while cultivating in seclusion, she would not go down the mountain even during the spring festival. People only said that she was strong-willed, but only she knew whether she was really strong-willed. Xiao Wanru was sure that on the night of the spring festival eve, Xiao Yanru not only went down the mountain but also met Qin Yuru. She should have, implicitly, given Qin Yuru some advice. Mount Donghua was a small mountain outside the capital city. Although it was similar to Mount Hua, it was not the real Mount Hua and was a long way away from the real Mount Hua. Mount Donghua was very famous, and the most famous one was the Yuhui nunnery on Mount Donghua. It was the largest nunnery around the capital city and was once a nunnery given by the royal family. When Pushun Nun was young, she was a miss from an aristocratic family in the south of the Yangtze River. Later, she lost her hair due to an accident. She was very famous in the capital city with her painting skills. Many aristocratic families wanted to invite her to teach their misses, but they were all rejected. They only said that her apprentice must cultivate in seclusion with her. Xiao Yanru gave up the glory of Duke Xing's mansion and really learned painting from Pushun Nun, which became a gossip. Xiao Yanru admired the first miss of Duke Xing's mansion more and more. Few misses under the age of young could resist the quietness of the nunnery. Moreover, they also followed a group of nuns to do morning classes and get up in the morning. Some madams and misses who saw the first miss of Duke Xing's mansion in the nunnery were full of praise when they mentioned the first Miss Xiao. They only said that she was a fairy who came down from heaven and accidentally fell into the mortal world. She was a person with great fortune. Then how can you leave with a justifiable reason? Great Elder Princess asked in confusion. Grandma, do you think Duke Xing's mansion can find out what happened yesterday and give us an answer? Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and asked softly. Great Elder Princess thought for a while and shook her head. Looking at her granddaughter's confident look, she knew that it was extremely difficult to find out, or it could not be found out at all. Until now, she had not figured out where the kerosene came from. How could she find such a good opportunity to not only break the trap of the couple, but also let the whole Duke Xing's mansion fall into the trap? Do you think they will suspect me? Xiao Wanru asked again. Of course they will. I heard that the courtyard is used by Duke Xing's mansion for the first young master of their mansion to get married. Didn't you say that you wanted to live in Qinghua's courtyard and wipe the screen wall where your father wrote? Great Elder Princess said angrily. At that time, Hao came over crying and said it. She was so angry that she wanted to talk to their old madam of Duke Xing's mansion on the spot. Later, she was stopped by Nanny Gao. They want the courtyard that was burned today, as well as the old residence of my father and mother. One is a courtyard that has been carefully decorated for many years. I'm afraid that not only some things of their mansion but also some things of my mother are arranged in it. How can they let others take advantage of it? As for the courtyard where my father and mother used to live, it is a symbol of their identity. If they live in it, they will be the legitimate heir of Duke Xing's mansion. Xiao Wanru said coldly. How dare they? How dare they? How is the heir of Duke Xing's mansion? The Great Elder Princess was furious. She patted the armrest of the chair hard and said angrily, if they hadn't forced you, your father and mother wouldn't have been forced to stay in Duke Xing's mansion and had to leave. It's all their fault. How dare they mention it now? As long as she thought of what had happened at that time, Great Elder Princess would be furious. For so many years, when she woke up at night, she would feel sorry for her. If she had known that she would end up like this, she would have kept her daughter and prevented her from marrying into Duke Xing's mansion. She would not have let the emperor issue an edict. Grandma, slow down. In this situation, Hao Can be the heir, so can the first young master. After all, the current Duke Xing is his father, while his father is only the former heir of Duke Xing's mansion. Seeing that great elder princess was so angry that her eyes turned red, Xiao Wanru quickly comforted her. Great elder princess let out a sigh of relief. She knew that it was reasonable, but she just couldn't get over it. Why could they inherit Duke Xing's mansion after harming her daughter and son-in-law, while her daughter and son-in-law died, leaving only a pair of orphans and widows, and even left Zhuozhua outside for a time? Thinking of this, she wished that the fire could be bigger today and the whole Duke Xing's mansion would be burned down. Great elder princess also knew that her thoughts were a little too biased, but she couldn't get over it. Grandma, let's take it slow. I will be away for 3 years. After 3 years, I will grow up and no longer have no right to speak. They can't always treat me as a child. At that time, we will find a way to seek justice for my father and mother. However, in these 3 years, Grandma, you need to let Duke Xing's mansion appoint the heir of Duke Xing. Xiao Wanru comforted great elder princess. She had a plan for this. Although she didn't like Duke Xing's mansion, she would get back what belonged to Hao for him. Although the name of talent could be admired, what about the name of filial piety? People couldn't say anything about it, right? When the name of talent met the name of filial piety, she would like to see whether the name of talent or the name of filial piety was more useful. I don't need to do this. I haven't been able to appoint the heir of Duke Xing for so many years, and now I can't. Great elder princess nodded. Duke Xing's mansion had submitted the memorial to appoint the heir of Duke Xing again and again, but she had tried her best to get the Empress Dowager and the Emperor to reject it. Hao was still young and ignorant before. Now Hao was sensible. At that time, she would show the people of Duke Xing's mansion that her grandson was also promising, not the kind of bully who grew up as a playboy. Great elder princess unconsciously followed Xiao Wanru's thoughts. Duke Xing's mansion can't find out that it has something to do with me, but everyone saw that I almost died. The high-quality kerosene, the fact that I was recorded in the family tree that day, and the time when I was about to take a bath all prove that someone in Duke Xing's mansion intended to harm me. Xiao Wanru held Great Elder Princess's hand and analyzed. Great Elder Princess nodded repeatedly and held Xiao Wanru's hand. Looking at her granddaughter's clear and sharp eyes, even Great Elder Princess, who had always been tough, couldn't help crying at this time. If it weren't for the fact that she had been in a dangerous situation all the time, such a little girl would only embroider in her room now. But now, she was plotting like a little adult. All of this was caused by Duke Xing's mansion. Gritting her teeth and swallowing the tears in her eyes, Great Elder Princess looked more and more determined. No matter what her granddaughter wanted to do, she would support her and never let her be bullied again. She pinched Xiao Wanru's thin little hand a little harder, as if this could give her strength. Chapter 458. 3 years of mourning in the nunnery? In the gorgeous palace, the Empress Dowager was stunned and the string of beads in her hand almost fell down. And Great Elder Princess clearly saw that the string of beads was sent by the master of the Yuhui nunnery. The Buddha beads had been blessed, and the Empress Dowager liked to rub them in her hand. Empress Dowager, do you think this child should live in Duke Xing's mansion like this? It's only the first day, and she almost lost her life. What's more, she planned to kill Zhuozhua when she was taking a bath at such a good time. Moreover, there is good kerosene. Where did these come from? And Great Elder Princess wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and said angrily with red eyes. She had always had a good relationship with the Empress Dowager. On the one hand, she got along well with the Empress Dowager before she got married. On the other hand, after her husband died, she lost her only daughter. Her situation could be said to be extremely pitiful. Even so, she was still very strong in front of others. Only in front of the Empress Dowager would she expose her weakness. Knowing that this child meant a lot to her, the Empress Dowager couldn't say anything against it for a while. Empress Dowager, there is a small ancestral hall behind my courtyard, which can also be used as a Buddha hall. Wanru can observe mourning in it. Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion thought for a while and said carefully. She still didn't want Xiao Wanru to leave like this. Last night, She discussed it with her son and daughter-in-law for a long time, but they didn't come to a proper conclusion. She just thought that a little girl couldn't do anything. Even though Ru and great elder princess was behind her, it was not as legitimate as her own family. She could live for a few days, but she couldn't live outside all the time. And great elder princess flew into a rage. She glared at old madam and said angrily, "You burned Zhuozhua's courtyard and wanted to kill Zhuozhua. In the end, you sent Zhuozhua to the family temple. What are you up to? This child's parents have been forced to death by you. Now are you going to force her and her brother to death too?" Usually, there was another saying about the small Buddha hall, ancestral hall and so on. That was, the madams and young ladies who had committed a crime would be sent there to stay for a period of time. This was almost an unwritten rule among the aristocratic families. Empress Dowager was also displeased. She snorted and said, "Old madam, do you mean that Xiao Wanru has made a mistake? How could Wanru make a mistake? But since she has to observe mourning for her parents, she should stay in the mansion. We can't let her, an unmarried miss, live outside." Old madam said with a worried face, as if she really cared about Xiao Wanru. "You don't feel at ease living outside, but your young miss has been living outside for some time. How can you feel at ease? Could it be that the first miss is nobler than Zhuozhua and can live wherever she wants?" Ruian great elder princess said aggressively. "Or wants to learn painting?" Old madam blushed and explained. "Is learning painting more important or observing filial piety? Old madam, you only care about some romantic things, but you don't care about real filial piety." Ruian great elder princess said sarcastically. In fact, learning painting was not a romantic thing, but it was indeed an elegant thing. After being scolded by great elder princess, even Empress Dowager felt that the first Miss Xiao was extremely insensible and disobedient. In order to learn painting, she even went out to live outside and was not afraid of her family's worry. Of course, filial piety is more important. Learning painting is not as important as filial piety. Empress Dowager began to be partial. She had forgotten that when she heard about it before, she had praised Xiao Wanru repeatedly and only said that the first Miss Xiao was a good girl who could be regarded as one of the few talented girls in the capital city. She was elegant and dignified, and Duke Xing's mansion had taught her well. Old madam's face turned red, but she could not argue. In their discussion yesterday, she did not expect that Xiao Wanru would make such a request, nor did she think of a way to deal with it. She was even more speechless when she mentioned Xiao Yanru just now. Between filial piety and elegance, everyone could get the answer immediately. Naturally, filial piety was more important. Why don't you find out the culprit of the burning of the courtyard in a few days first, and then let Zhuozhua go back? Ruian great elder princess said with a sneer. Old madam became more and more speechless. Yesterday, she actually suspected her daughter-in-law, but yesterday, Madam of Duke Xing swore to God in her room. She cried and made a fuss, saying that she didn't know and that it had nothing to do with her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have burned the garden, which almost killed her. Hearing this, old madam immediately believed it. But if it was not her daughter-in-law, who could it be? After thinking for a night, old madam still could not figure it out, but she knew that it was not easy to investigate. You can't find out the culprit, and you haven't found it. If you let my granddaughter live in your mansion, it is like killing her. Old madam, do you really have this intention? Great elder princess stared at old madam and asked sternly. Since your mansion has been investigating for a period of time, and it is indeed not safe for Xiao Wanru to live in your mansion, it is reasonable for her to live in the Yuhui nunnery in the name of observing mourning for her parents. Then it is decided. Tell the public that she will observe mourning for 3 years, and we will talk about other things after 3 years. Seeing that old madam was forced to speechless by great elder princess, the Empress Dowager helped them to make a decision. Since this matter was brought to her, it was naturally the Empress Dowager's intention to make a decision. Since the Empress Dowager had said so, Duke Xing's mansion really had no reason to refuse. Originally, Duke Xing's mansion was in the wrong in the arson incident yesterday. Unless they found a powerful person to solve the arson incident last night, there was not much room for them to argue in this matter. Since the Empress Dowager said so, old madam could only agree. Xiao Wanru, who was under the stairs, breathed a sigh of relief. This matter was finally approved by the Empress Dowager. Come here. The Empress Dowager looked up at Xiao Wanru. After looking her up and down, her eyes fell on a jade pendant on her waist, and she waved to her kindly. A palace maid came over and helped her up. Xiao Wanru walked up the stairs slowly and stood in front of the Empress Dowager. Sit down here. I like such a filial child very much. The Empress Dowager said gently. A palace maid hurriedly brought a chair over and placed it beside the Empress Dowager. Xiao Wanru sat down obediently and felt anxious. At this time, there should be nothing else to do, so she could go back to the mansion, right? Why did the Empress Dowager let her stay? This jade pendant is good. Where did it come from? The Empress Dowager looked at her again, and suddenly her eyes fell on her waist. Let me see. Xiao Wanru hurriedly reached out to take off the jade pendant and respectfully presented it to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager picked up the jade pendant and looked at it carefully. Feeling the warmth of the jade pendant, she looked at Xiao Wanru more and more quietly. Xiao Wanru lowered her head nervously and looked down at her toes. She could feel that the Empress Dowager had been looking at her, and she deeply regretted that she had brought this jade pendant into the palace. She was afraid of meeting Chu Luchen. He had asked her to bring the jade pendant here before. If he saw that she didn't wear it, he might make trouble again. So she had to wear it obediently, just in case. Unexpectedly, she didn't meet Chu Luchen, but attracted the Empress Dowager's attention. The Empress Dowager must have found that this jade pendant belonged to Chu Luchen, right? Thinking of this, her face also turned red. This jade pendant is good. Where did it come from? The Empress Dowager looked at it a few times and asked calmly. Hearing the Empress Dowager's question, Xiao Wanru knew that the Empress Dowager would not reveal this matter. She secretly breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly replied, Empress Dowager, this is a gift from a friend. A friend? The Empress Dowager looked at Xiao Wanru with a faint smile and said. Xiao Wanru was shocked and hurriedly pulled herself together. After calming down, she immediately looked calm. Speaking of this jade pendant, she actually had a clear conscience. It was Chu Luchen who insisted on giving it to her, and she didn't force him to give it to her. I like this jade pendant. Why don't I exchange it with other jade pendants? Seeing that she calmed down so quickly, the Empress Dowager nodded secretly and continued to ask without giving Xiao Wanru a chance to answer. It's my blessing. If you like it, you don't have to exchange it. Xiao Wanru said carefully. There was no need to exchange it. It was Chu Luchen's thing, not hers. How can I take a child's thing? Come on, get a jade pendant for me. The Empress Dowager leaned back and said with a gentle smile. She reached out and pointed to the chair beside her. Xiao Wanru obediently stepped forward and sat down. A palace maid behind her had already come out with a jade pendant. The Empress Dowager put the jade pendant in her hand on the tray in the palace maid's hand and took out the jade pendant on the tray. She looked at Xiao Wanru and handed it to her with a smile. Her eyes were gentle and approachable. I can't take your jade pendant for nothing. I'll exchange this jade pendant for yours. Thank you for your gift, Empress Dowager. Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes fluttered a few times. She didn't know what was going on. Did the Empress Dowager take a fancy to Chu Luchen's jade pendant? She even had an extremely absurd idea. Could it be that the Empress Dowager had taken a fancy to Chu Luchen's jade pendant for a long time, but it was inconvenient for her to exchange it with him? Now that she saw it in her hand, she immediately exchanged it for her? Wear this jade pendant with you from now on. My jade pendant is also very nourishing. It has been in my hand for many years, but I haven't given it to anyone. It's rare to see your jade pendant, so I'm even more happy. So I exchanged this jade pendant for the one you like. The smile on the Empress Dowager's face grew wider as she looked at the confused girl sitting in front of her. Her delicate facial features were pleasing to the eye no matter how she looked at them. She was a good girl. She had thought that there was something wrong with her identity before. Now it seemed that her identity was completely worthy of it. She didn't have to be a bad person anymore. Thinking about the girl's background, she felt that she was really pitiful. At present, she looked cute and likable, and she was so good-looking. Thinking about it, she felt satisfied. Chapter 459. The Empress Dowager had a lot of thoughts in her mind, but she kept smiling and seemed to be in a good mood. Xiao Wanru was at a loss and didn't understand why the Empress Dowager was so kind to her. However, Ruan Great Elder Princess could tell that the Empress Dowager really liked Xiao Wanru. She was overjoyed and hurriedly asked her to thank the Empress Dowager for the reward. No one would take exchange seriously or not. As for the matter that the Empress Dowager said that she liked Xiao Wanru's jade pendant, no one would think that it was true. Neither Great Elder Princess nor Old Madam had touched this piece of jade in person. Of course, they didn't know that this piece of jade was the rarest warm jade. It was warm all year round and was extremely good for Chu Liuchen's illness. Chu Liuchen was in poor health and seldom appeared in front of others. Even if he occasionally entered the palace to meet the Empress Dowager, he might not meet these two. They didn't know that this jade pendant of warm jade belonged to Chu Liuchen. At this moment, no one thought that this matter had something to do with him. Old Madam frowned and looked at Xiao Wanru. She didn't like the scene in front of her. How nice it would be if her eldest granddaughter was so favored. Originally, in the whole mansion, only her eldest granddaughter was the most outstanding and the one she liked the most. But how could this little granddaughter get the best? Old Madam, you don't like Wanru being liked by the Empress Dowager? When Ruan Great Elder Princess glanced at Old Madam, she found that her face was not good, so she asked with a cold smile. Why not? It's the blessing of the whole Duke Xing's mansion that Wanru can be liked by the Empress Dowager. Old Madam explained with a smile on her face. Then why did Old Madam frown just now? Great Elder Princess felt that Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion was uncomfortable, so her words became more and more impolite. Great Elder Princess, why are you so aggressive? What else do you want us to do? No one wanted the thing between Qinghua and eldest brother to happen. Old Madam's eyes turned red and she said aggrievedly. She wiped the corners of her eyes with the handkerchief in her hand. She was implying that Ruan Great Elder Princess was making trouble out of nothing by focusing on the past. Xiao Wanru lowered her head, and a trace of sarcasm flashed across her face. Even her grandmother would pretend to be pitiful in front of the Empress Dowager. Well, you really can't blame anyone for this. No one wanted it to happen. Forget it, let it pass. Now that you see your lovely granddaughter and grandson, you don't need to care about these things anymore. Otherwise, how can these two children live with themselves? The Empress Dowager couldn't stand it anymore and persuaded. Great Elder Princess still wanted to say something, but Xiao Wanru reached out to pull her sleeve. Empress Dowager, I don't care about it. I just want to see the brother and sister live a good life now. What happened to them will never happen again. And Great Elder Princess no longer fought for victory and just lowered her head bitterly. Let it go. This kind of thing won't happen again. The two children will grow up safely. If this kind of thing happens again and the two children are forced to run away, I will make the decision and pass them to you. The Empress Dowager said decisively. Thank you, Empress Dowager. And Great Elder Princess was overjoyed. She stood up and bowed to the Empress Dowager. Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion looked a little ugly. It was not that she was reluctant to part with Xiao Wanru and her younger brother. It was really that if this kind of thing really happened, the whole Duke Xing's mansion would be embarrassed. Her grandson and granddaughter could not live safely in their own mansion, but were forced to pass them to their maternal grandma. What the hell was this? Empress Dowager, rest assured. I won't let them be in danger. I will definitely treat them as treasures in my heart. Old Madam had to stand up and respectfully promise the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager stretched out her hand and pressed it on both sides, indicating that they all need not salute, and then let them sit down again. Her eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's face again and she said with a smile, I still want to talk to your two elders. Go to the main hall on the side and have a seat first. If you are bored sitting, you can also walk around in my palace. Xiao Wanru looked at Ruan Great Elder Princess hesitantly. Great Elder Princess nodded to her with a smile and said, Thank the Empress Dowager. There was indeed something to do now. She still had to snatch the right of Xiao Wanru's marriage from Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion. It was really not good for Zhuozhuo to listen here. Thank you, Empress Dowager. Xiao Wanru stood up and said softly. The Empress Dowager nodded with a smile. A palace maid came over and led Xiao Wanru to the side hall on the side. Seeing the tacit interaction between Xiao Wanru and Great Elder Princess, old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion looked increasingly ugly. She was a serious elder, but she was not as good as a maternal grandma. She felt aggrieved and disgusted in her heart. She increasingly felt that Xiao Wanru was the same as her mother. They couldn't distinguish between inside and outside and didn't know who should be close to. With the Empress Dowager here, old Madam could not say anything and even had to force a smile on her face. The side hall of the Empress Dowager was very large. There was a door of the main hall in the front, and the side door on the side was from the main hall, which was much smaller than the main door. As soon as they entered the door of the side hall, the palace maid who led the way bowed deeply to the handsome young man sitting in the side hall. You can go back first. Xiao Xuanzi winked at the palace maid. The palace maid stepped aside and then left. She even closed the side door on the side when she left. So Chu Luqian had already waited for her here? Xiao Wanru said helplessly. Xiao Wanru said helplessly. Come and drink tea. Imperial grandmother doesn't have much of this kind of tea. I heard that it was planted in the back mountain of the Yuhui nunnery. It is said that this tea has the fragrance of Buddha and is very nourishing. Chu Luqian personally poured a cup of tea for Xiao Wanru and pushed it in front of her. Xiao Wanru had no choice but to come over and sit down. She picked up the tea and took a sip. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. The taste of the tea was not strong, with a very light fragrance, which seemed to be a little lighter than ordinary tea. The tea Xiao Wanru used to use was mainly light, and she didn't use much. She just put a few pieces of tea in it, and it was better to see the light green on the tea. The taste was very suitable for her. It was light at the first taste, but mellow after the aftertaste. There is this kind of tea in the back mountain of the Yuhui nunnery? Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes fluttered twice, and she raised her eyes and asked in surprise. In her last life, she only knew that Xiao Yinru once lived in the Yuhui nunnery and learned painting, and then she heard that and Great Elder Princess became a monk there. The Yuhui nunnery is not an ordinary nunnery. Although it can't be compared with the Huaguang Temple and can be regarded as a royal temple, it is not ordinary. If the emperor died, the S in the imperial harem would all be sent to the Yuhui nunnery. In the past, there were precedents of princesses becoming monks in the Yuhui nunnery. Chu Luqian picked up the teacup in front of him, took a sip and put it down. He was in poor health, so he also drank this kind of light tea and liked it. Xiao Wanru thought for a moment and said with her face changing slightly, Are there also S in the imperial harem of the former emperor in the Yuhui nunnery? Of course. Although there were not many S in the past, there were still a few of them. They were all sent to the Yuhui nunnery, but it is a little different from the residence of the real nuns. Chu Luqian lowered his head, and the black eyelashes on his pale and handsome face blinked. Then he slowly raised his head and narrowed his eyes slightly. His words were very calm, as if he was talking about someone else's business. Xiao Wanru knew that the so-called S in the imperial harem were originally his father's S. She heard that his mother died of depression after his father died of illness. She was afraid that he would feel sad when mentioning this kind of thing. However, when he said this, he forcefully changed the topic, which seemed to be much more deliberate. Is the Yuhui nunnery big? Xiao Wanru thought for a moment, turned the exquisite teacup in her hand, and asked. Big. The entire Donghua mountain is included in the nunnery. Chu Luqian raised his eyes, and there was a flickering light in his long and narrow eyes, which looked a little gloomy and deep. The picturesque handsome young man looked a little evil at this time. Is there anything in it that you want, Your Highness? Xiao Wanru thought for a moment and said bluntly. She slowly put down the cup in her hand and sat up straight with her slender body. Since they were talking about business, of course, she had to listen carefully. Yes. Chu Luqian smiled and curled his pale lips. The corners of his lips were very light, and his light color always made people feel that he was weak. However, this kind of lip color matched him very well. There was a kind of extreme delicacy and handsomeness that was out of this world, as if such a person could only appear in a painting. Of course, Xiao Wanru, who had fought with Chu Luqian several times, did not think that he was really otherworldly. He was deceiving others with his gentle appearance. The color was light, but the toxicity was strong. Of course, Xiao Wanru did not dare to ignore his words. After thinking for a moment, she asked anxiously, "Your Highness, what do you want? If I have a chance, I will find it for you." She did not dare to easily agree to get it, and she did not know what good thing it was that made Chu Luchen so obsessed. "Find a person for me." Chu Luchen supported his chin with his hand and said leisurely, "A nun in the Yuhui nunnery? Or in who is locked up?" Qin Wanru asked more and more cautiously. It was obvious that this matter was difficult, otherwise it would not be her turn. The S who are locked up are all in the same place. There is a wall separating it from the Yuhui nunnery, which is equivalent to separating several gardens in the Yuhui nunnery. The door facing the Yuhui nunnery is closed, and the key is naturally in the hands of the nunnery master. You have to find a way to go in once and find a named Shurong. I want to ask something about what happened in the past. Xiao Wanru was flustered. She bit her lip and complained secretly in her heart, but she had to agree. "Your Highness, rest assured. If there is a chance, I will definitely find her." This kind of thing was obviously not a good thing, and it might even be related to Chu Liuchen's big event. You go to the Yuhui nunnery with Nanny Zheng. She knows the name Shurong. You only need to take 2 servant girls with you. As for the others, you don't need to take them with you. Mingqiu Nun happens to be there, and she will take care of you there. Chu Luchen seemed to have prepared everything for her, which made Xiao Wanru more and more speechless. "Your Highness, have you long thought that I would go to the Yuhui nunnery?" If you want to leave Duke Xing's mansion, the Yuhui nunnery is indeed a good place, but you have to pay attention to one person. Xiao Wanru's heart tightened, and she asked with her watery eyes wide open. Chapter 460. The sudden change in his words made Xiao Wanru unable to keep up with him for a while. She reached out and took out the jade pendant given by the Empress Dowager from her sleeve slowly. The Empress Dowager exchanged it. She reached out and handed the jade pendant to Chu Luchen. The previous jade pendant belonged to him, and now the so-called exchanged jade pendant belonged to him. "My jade pendant is not this one." Chu Luchen narrowed his eyes slightly with a hint of danger. It seemed that he was not very happy. The Empress Dowager said that she liked the previous one, "Your Highness." Xiao Wanru said helplessly. She didn't understand what the grandfather and grandson were doing. She rolled her watery eyes slightly and squinted at Chu Luchen. She didn't believe that Chu Luchen didn't know that the Empress Dowager would exchange the jade pendant. Did he expect this to happen when he asked her to wear it all the time? "My jade pendant was given to you, but you lost it and got such a jade pendant. Do you think I should punish you?" Chu Luchen shook the teacup in his hand, looked at the tea in it rippling slightly, and said casually. Xiao Wanru was scared and asked obediently, "Your Highness, what do you want?" Even if it was a trap, she had to jump into it. "Since Imperial Grandmother gave this jade pendant to you, don't lose it in the future. This jade pendant is used by Imperial Grandmother to find a wife for me." Chu Luchen suddenly laughed in an extremely lazy and complacent manner. He put down the cup in his hand and leaned back with a sense of comfort and laziness. Although his face was pale, he was lively without the gloomy elements deep in his heart. Chu Luchen was indeed as beautiful as an elegant young man coming out of a painting. Xiao Wanru's hand trembled and she almost dropped the jade pendant. She hurriedly reached out and held it tightly. What does the Empress Dowager mean? She felt a little uneasy. It was one thing to make an agreement with Chu Luchen, but it was another thing to be seen by the Empress Dowager and be given a jade pendant. She felt guilty as if she had been caught by an elder. Imperial Grandmother naturally means that she recognizes you. Although she hasn't made an official engagement with you now, it can be considered as a matter of fact. Your Highness, this isn't very good, is it? Xiao Wanru held the jade pendant in her hand hesitantly and wanted to send it back. However, she remembered that the jade pendant was given by the Empress Dowager. Even if she wanted to return it, she had to return it to the Empress Dowager. Why not? Chu Luchen squinted at her with an unfriendly look. I'm going to the nunnery to observe mourning for my biological parents for 3 years. If your highness doesn't like anyone else in these 3 years, it's not good to give this jade pendant to me first, Xiao Wanru said as she chose her words. She frowned slightly and looked a little pitiful. You've been in the nunnery for 3 years, and you're not locked up. If you want to go out for a walk, you can. If the weather is good, you can go out and enjoy the scenery. If I'm free, I can also go to your place. I heard that there's a peach forest behind the Yuhui nunnery, which is very elegant. If I'm free, I'll come to enjoy the scenery and visit you. Xiao Wanru looked at Chu Luchen in astonishment. What did he take the Yuhui nunnery for? Back garden? He still had time to go out for a walk and visit her? Your Highness, it's better for you to stay in the capital city. There are only nuns in the Yuhui nunnery, which is inconvenient. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and said implicitly, But you don't want to see me? Chu Liuchen's face darkened and he was unhappy. How could I? It's just that it's a nunnery. Xiao Wanru felt that her reminder was clear enough. There were only women in the nunnery. Why did he, a man, come to the nunnery? I'm not in good health. Mingqiu nun in the Yuhui nunnery has excellent medical skills. Imperial grandmother has allowed her to treat me. A lazy smile appeared on Chu Liuchen's face again. He sat up straight and elegantly poured a cup of tea for himself. Then he looked up and asked Xiao Wanru, Do you want it? Thank you, Your Highness. I have it. Looking at the tea in her teacup, Xiao Wanru said helplessly. She put the jade pendant on the table and said, Your Highness, what about this jade pendant? It's given to you, so it's naturally yours. Do you want me to return the jade pendant? Since I've expressed my love for you, I won't go back on my words and ask for the jade pendant given to you by Imperial grandmother. Chu Luchen reached out to take the jade pendant and looked at it. He shook it in his hand with satisfaction and then pushed it back to Xiao Wanru. This is the jade pendant for this prince's consort. Your Highness, don't you think it's a little inappropriate? Xiao Wanru said with a frown. It's okay. Although you look so small and seem to be of little use, you're more useful than others. Chu Luchen looked her up and down in disgust and said. His words made Xiao Wanru speechless. After a moment of silence, she carefully put the jade pendant in her sleeve. Since she had promised Chu Luchen before, she had to cooperate no matter what Chu Luchen did. Although it was a little early to let the Empress Dowager know, she thought that Chu Luchen might really be forced to marry by the Empress Dowager. The news that the Empress Dowager was going to choose concubines for these princes had been widely spread. Then I'll keep it for you, Your Highness. If you need it, just ask me for it. After thinking for a while, she felt that it was better to make it more clear, lest Chu Luchen would have a crush on someone else, and many things would happen in a short time. It was better to say it here, which was simple and clear. Okay, if I want it, just ask you for it. Chu Luchen waved his hand impatiently and didn't want to talk about the jade pendant at all. Seeing her carefully put away the jade pendant, with a look of, I'll keep it for you first and give it to someone else when there is another suitable one, Chu Luchen felt sullen in his heart. He was in a very bad mood. Since he was unhappy, he looked a little unfriendly. He stared at Xiao Wanru and asked, Tell me what happened in your mansion yesterday? After the guard went back, he repeated what had happened to him. It should be someone who wanted to plot against me and ruin my reputation. Since no one saw the face of the woman in the pavilion, they could guess that it was me when they saw the same clothes. In addition, the water came to me and I had taken a bath and changed my clothes. It must be me even if it wasn't me. I can't explain it clearly. Xiao Wanru fluttered her long eyelashes twice and said with a bit of a deep voice, Duke Xing's mansion can't tolerate you so much? Chu Luchen asked slowly, Didn't they say that they are your blood relatives? Could it be that there's some kind of blood feud involved? His words made Xiao Wanru's heart skip a beat. After thinking for a while, she said with a little distress, Your Highness, if I help Hao and take the position of heir of Duke Xing's mansion, do you think it can be regarded as a blood feud? She still had some doubts about something, so she couldn't help asking Chu Luchen at this time. Was it really just because of the position of heir of Duke Xing? In her last life, something had happened to Hao, and she had also been plotted against by Duke Xing's mother and daughter. Cut the weeds and eliminate the roots? Chu Luchen suddenly laughed. His voice was very pleasant but very cold. It seemed that something had fiercely scratched Xiao Wanru's heart and made her weak defense suddenly break. Her fingers trembled slightly, and then she held the teacup beside her hand and took 2 big gulps of tea. Because she was in a hurry, she choked. For a moment, she turned her head sideways and coughed loudly. The water she had just drunk was also choked, and tears flowed down her face. A white handkerchief with a light grid suddenly appeared in front of her. She coughed hard again, raised her misty eyes, and looked along the handkerchief to Chu Liuchen's hand and then Chu Liuchen's. Chu Liuchen seemed to find her reaction extremely interesting. He smiled, stuffed the handkerchief in his hand into Xiao Wanru's hand, and then said lazily, "Have you guessed it? Or have you thought about it for a long time?" If she hadn't guessed it for a long time, she wouldn't have such a big reaction. Xiao Wanru lowered her eyes, and her long eyelashes lay tiredly on her pale face. She sighed and said directly, "I guessed it before." "Then go and find out. No matter who it is, it's a matter of course to pay for a debt of blood." Chu Liuchen seemed to be very satisfied with her straightforwardness. He slightly raised his beautiful eyes with a bit of warmth different from the past, but his words still made people feel cold in their hearts. But at this moment, his words touched Xiao Wanru's heart. "Your Highness, can I borrow a few people from you?" Xiao Wanru held the handkerchief in her hand, looked up at him and said, "What do you mean?" Chu Liuchen asked gently. "I want to send someone to investigate what happened in those years and find out everything about my father and mother after they left," Xiao Wanru said with a serious face. "So what if you find out? Aren't you afraid?" Chu Liuchen asked with interest. "I'm not afraid. If I find out that someone really killed my parents, I will naturally pay for it." Xiao Wanru said very calmly, but there was a bloodthirsty killing intent in her beautiful eyes, which was clearly shown in front of Chu Liuchen. She, who had crawled back from the bloody hell, had nothing to fear. She would not say this in front of others, but she felt that there was nothing she could not say to Chu Liuchen. He looked sick and weak, but in fact he was the most ruthless and bloodthirsty. More than half of the people in the Imperial Palace had been killed by him, and they were all beautiful women. "You want to go against the whole Duke Xing's mansion? Do you know how many of them are your relatives now?" Chu Liuchen looked at her and asked with a faint smile. "My relatives are not from Duke Xing's mansion," Xiao Wanru said contemptuously. Her contemptuous look of disdain for all the etiquette was extremely inconsistent with the norm and could even be said to challenge all the etiquette. Bloodline had always represented kinship and also represented the most standard interest combination. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of soft applause came from Chu Liuchen's hands, which also pulled Xiao Wanru back to her senses. She looked up at Chu Liuchen's handsome and elegant face, wondering what he was doing. "Zhuozhuo, you're right. The so-called kinship and bloodline are actually nothing. If he wants to hurt you, he will not be restrained by the bloodline. In this case, why do you care too much about the so-called bloodline and kinship?" His cold words seemed to come from hell. Coupled with the gentle smile on his face, it made people's hearts tremble inexplicably, as if something had been released. Yujie had always been very bold, but at this time, she couldn't help hiding behind Xiao Wanru. Chapter 461. Chu Liuchen chuckled meaningfully. "Thank you, Your Highness." Xiao Wanru stood up and bowed deeply to Chu Liuchen respectfully. Chu Liuchen waved his hand elegantly, reached out to point at a seat, and motioned for her to sit down. He said very casually, "Our current relationship can be considered to be an open one. Helping you is equivalent to helping me. I won't care about this." He didn't continue his words. Xiao Wanru held the handkerchief in her hand, and her heart was in her throat, waiting for the crucial turning point. "I heard that Duke Xing has a good temper and is rarely angry. Even if he can't handle something, he will at most turn around and leave. He has always had a good reputation in the imperial court. In fact, I find it quite strange. Is Duke Xing's temper so good? Did he get angry last night?" Chu Liuchen said with a leisurely smile. Xiao Wanru thought for a moment and said honestly, "He got angry last night. I can see that he was very angry." "Did he do it?" Chu Liuchen said with a smile. "No, he didn't do it." Xiao Wanru said bluntly and then added, "At least he didn't do it when I left." This kind of thing is a disgrace to the entire Duke Xing's mansion. Moreover, so many people saw it, and it almost pointed at Madame of Duke Xing, but Duke Xing didn't get angry. If he is not really a very good-tempered person, he must have other intentions. Chu Luqian stretched out his slender fingers, gently knocked on the table twice, and said lazily. Xiao Wanru understood what he meant. He was either a loyal or a traitor. She had thought about it carefully. After her rebirth, some things became clear, and she also saw it more thoroughly. It was said that her current second uncle, Duke Xing, was a good-tempered person, and he also looked like a good-tempered person. He was round and smiled before saying anything. However, there were many people in the world who didn't match their appearance, just like Prince Chen in front of her. If she was confused by his sickly appearance, she wouldn't even know how she died. This elegant and sick Prince Chen waved his hand, and the palace had already been flooded with blood. Those powerful opponents and their subjects all fell at his feet. In the last life, she had never met Duke Xing, but there were rumors everywhere that Duke Xing had a good temper and got along well with Madame of Duke Xing. Many misses from aristocratic families thought that it was not necessary to marry a good man or a handsome man. It was enough to marry someone like Duke Xing. Needless to say, Madame of Duke Xing had a sweet face but a bitter heart. But Duke Xing was so compatible with her. Was it really because he had a good temper that he tolerated everything? If that was really the case, she would also look down on him. Tolerating great evildoers was no different from great evildoers. What's more, this second uncle of hers always felt that he wasn't simple. His so-called good reputation was just for show. What he was after was not small, right? He should have other plans. Xiao Wanru didn't hide it and spoke out her thoughts with a serious face. If you go back to Duke Xing's mansion, find out for me who is behind him. Chu Luqian leaned back comfortably and said casually, "Your Highness, who do you think he has turned to?" Xiao Wanru couldn't help asking. Since he said so, he must have some evidence. "I'm not sure for the time being. Since you are my subordinate, find out this matter for me." Chu Luqian was happy to see Xiao Wanru worry about this. "I'm afraid you have to wait for 3 years. Xiao Wanru hesitated for a moment and said, "I can wait for 3 years. Chu Luqian raised his eyebrows and smiled, seeming to be in a good mood. "You don't have to worry. Deal with the matter in the Yuhui nunnery first. You should pay attention to Pishun Nun, Xiao Yenru's painting teacher in the Yuhui nunnery. What's wrong with her? You should be careful about the specific problem. Don't feel that you can't bear it after a few days. What's more, your big sister is also in the Yuhui nunnery now. She is not a quiet person." Chu Luqian said meaningfully. It was not easy for Xiao Wanru to answer. Restless in the Yuhui nunnery? Did he mean what he thought he meant? "I'm also tired. You can go shopping by yourself." Chu Luqian supported his head with one hand and closed his eyes slightly. "Yes, Your Highness." Xiao Wanru stood up and bowed to him respectfully. Then she turned around and left. Yu Jie followed her closely. After a few steps, she suddenly found that she was still holding Chu Luqian's handkerchief in her hand, so she hurriedly turned around. In front of the table, Chu Luqian lowered his head slightly with a pale face. He supported his forehead with one hand and covered his face with the wide sleeve of his robe. He seemed to be dozing off. Xiao Wanru suddenly felt that something was wrong. His hand, which supported his head, was trembling slightly. She hurriedly took a step forward and held his hand. Following her gesture, Chu Luqian's body softened. Xiao Wanru hurriedly reached out to hold him and involuntarily sat on the ground. Before she sat up, she had taken the opportunity to put her hand on the pulse of his right hand. She only felt that his skin was as white as snow, and his face was so pale that there was almost no trace of blood. Just now, he sat here with a faint smile. Although he was also pale, he was not as pale and haggard as he was now, as if he was a jade figure made of ice and snow. "Master!" Xiao Xuanzi screamed and rushed over. Yu Jie grabbed him and said, "Don't move. Let my miss feel the pulse for the prince." "Our master's old illness recurred. What can we do? We have to go back to the mansion." Xiao Xuanzi was so anxious that cold sweat came down from his forehead. Is there no imperial physician in the palace? Why do you have to go back to your own mansion? Yu Jie asked casually while watching Xiao Wanru feel the pulse. You don't understand. These imperial physicians in the palace can't cure our master, and the medicine they prescribe is not reasonable. Only those in our mansion can cure him. Xiao Xuanzi stamped his feet anxiously and suddenly grabbed Yu Jie. You take care of our master here first. I'll report to the Empress Dowager, and then find a soft couch to carry him back to the mansion. Okay. Yu Jie nodded and agreed. Xiao Xuanzi left in a hurry to report to the Empress Dowager. After feeling the pulse, Xiao Wanru looked extremely pale and felt a little strange, but she did not dare to show it at this time. She helped Chu Luchen to get up, and Yu Jie hurriedly reached out to help her. The two of them helped him up again with difficulty. At this time, Xiao Xuanzi had finished reporting and brought a soft couch over. The Empress Dowager had no time to talk with an great elder princess and old madam, and also hurried over. When they carried Chu Luchen to the soft couch and were about to carry him away, they found that Chu Liuchen's hand was tightly holding Xiao Wanru's hand. The Empress Dowager asked the palace maids and old maids to pull him a few times, but they failed, so she asked Xiao Xuanzi to take Xiao Wanru with him. They went directly from the palace to Chu Liuchen's Prince Chen's mansion through the small side door. Looking at Chu Liuchen's face and thinking of the pulse she had just felt, Xiao Wanru did not hesitate and directly followed the soft couch to Prince Chen's mansion. They walked very fast along the small path. But even so, Xiao Xuanzi was so anxious that his forehead was covered with sweat, and he kept shouting to hurry up. The side door had already been opened. Xiao Wanru's eyes flickered slightly when she saw two palace maids guarding at the side door. It was usually the old maids in the palace who guarded the door. Why would they send two young and beautiful palace maids to guard it? After the soft couch entered the door, there was a semi-reclining wheelchair that was flattened into a soft couch. Chu Luchen was put on the flat soft couch wheelchair, and Xiao Xuanzi pushed him to the mansion in a hurry. After turning a few intersections skillfully, they came to the door of a remote courtyard. Yu Jie went up and pushed the door. Xiao Xuanzi pushed Chu Luchen in and said loudly, Dr. Qi, come here. I fainted again. The door in the middle of the room was pushed open, and a tall middle-aged man in a white cloth coat appeared at the door. Hearing Xiao Xuanzi's words, he hurriedly walked down, glanced at Chu Luchen, whose face was pale, and said, Carry him in. Xiao Xuanzi nodded and pushed him to the front of the steps. Then he picked up the soft couch, which was much larger than his body, and carried it directly into the room. Xiao Wanru was dragged in. When they got inside, Dr. Qi had turned around and taken out a brown jade bottle. He poured 2 pills into Chu Liuchen's mouth. Xiao Xuanzi raised Chu Liuchen's head slightly. Although one of Xiao Wanru's hands was pulled, the other hand could still reach the table on the side. There were teapots and teacups on the table. She took one and poured a cup of water into it. The water was just warm. 2 small pills were sent into Chu Liuchen's mouth. She also fed him the cup of warm water carefully, and then put it down and wiped his mouth with a handkerchief. Xiao Xuanzi put Chu Luchen down. Dr. Qi reached out to feel his pulse, and his face was very pale. After a long while he raised his head, looked at Xiao Xuanzi, and said, Your Highness, didn't you take the medicine this morning? Xiao Xuanzi lowered his head when he heard this question. How can you always be like this? Your Highness, you don't take your body as your body at all? Even if it is an ordinary disease, he will treat it as a serious disease. What's more, his disease is a fetus toxin. Dr. Qi said angrily, If it continues, I won't treat him. Your Highness, you can do whatever you want. Even the patient doesn't want to recover. Who else can save him? Dr. Qi scratched his hair impatiently. Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly understood where her strange feeling came from. After feeling his pulse just now, she sensed his weakness. He was very weak, even weaker than the previous times, as if his body had not been properly treated with medicine at all. He didn't want to live? He had nothing to live for? Or the future crown prince's will to live was so weak? Her heart inexplicably twitched fiercely. Dr. Qi, I really forgot this time. My master was in a hurry to go to the palace. Xiao Xuanzi was sweating as he explained. It was obvious that he was very guilty at first glance. Suddenly he saw Xiao Wanru, who was surprised, and immediately reached out to point at her and said, "My master was in a hurry to find the fifth miss, so he forgot to take the medicine. Please forgive him, Dr. Qi." Chapter 462. It's true, Dr. Qi. It's true this time. This is our future Princess Qin. She was framed and is going to become a nun. Xiao Xuanzi explained eagerly. Xiao Wanru's face immediately turned red. Although it was true, why did his words sound so strange? What nonsense are you talking about? Who is going to become a nun? Our miss is going to the nunnery to observe mourning for the heir and the infanta. Yujia was also anxious and argued loudly. Yes, go to the nunnery to observe mourning. That's what I mean. Xiao Xuanzi nodded repeatedly and said yes. Dr. Qi was dubious. He looked at Chu Luqian, who still hadn't woken up, and then looked at Xiao Wanru, who was young but extremely beautiful. He sighed and said, "Your prince is really a man who loves beauty more than his life." Dr. Qi, what are you talking about? She is the future princess our Empress Dowager has arranged for our master. Who will care about her if our master doesn't care about her? Xiao Xuanzi said with a flattering smile. Well, he can't be like before in the future. Dr. Qi looked at Xiao Xuanzi's lazy face helplessly. Of course. No one can go against his own life, right? Our master has figured it out recently. You see, after returning to the capital city recently, his medicine has become much more normal. He basically takes medicine every day. He doesn't feel useless and even refuses to take medicine when he loses his temper like before. Xiao Xuanzi nodded. He bent down and said flatteringly, "In terms of medicine, the prince is a little more conscious than before." Dr. Qi said, and then waved his hand impatiently, "Help your master go back to have a rest first. I will boil some medicine for him later. Tell him to take it well this time. Otherwise, he can't even keep his life now, let alone in the future." Yes, how can he not keep his life well? He can live one day at a time. After all, it's his own life, right? Xiao Xuanzi nodded repeatedly, but his smile was extremely bitter. Thinking of Chu Liuqian's illness and hearing Xiao Xuanzi's words, Xiao Wanru's heart also became heavy. The blush on her face slowly faded, and she sighed secretly. Was this illness really incurable? How long had he lived after her death in her previous life? However, the last time she saw him in her previous life, he seemed to be alive and well. Although his lips were paler than the average person's, it was only slightly pale. He had a kind of sickly handsomeness, but he didn't really look weak. He ran down the stairs with big steps and looked very strong. Her heart suddenly trembled fiercely, and her watery eyes were filled with horror. Why did she suddenly remember that he was running down at that time? The last scene she saw should be him standing on the high steps, right? Why would he suddenly have such an idea? Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her heart, as if something had pulled it hard. She stretched out the hand that wasn't being held and subconsciously covered her chest. "Miss." Yujia saw her abnormality and called her in a low voice. She let go of her hand and shook it gently, indicating that she was fine. Then she helped Xiao Xuanzi push the soft couch made of the wheelchair out. The two old maids from the Imperial Palace who had come to help before had already come in at this time. They also helped to carry Chu Luqian out of the room steadily. "You can go back to the Imperial Palace first." After Chu Luqian was put down, Xiao Xuanzi carefully checked him, and then waved his hand and said, "You can go back to the Imperial Palace first." The two nannies who followed from the Imperial Palace bowed to Chu Luqian and left respectfully. When they arrived at the side door connecting Prince Chen's mansion and the Imperial Palace, they also carried the soft couch before and went back to the Imperial Palace to report to the Empress Dowager. "Fifth miss, come with me," Xiao Xuanzi said as he pushed Chu Luqian. The wheelchair was now lying down, and it was very long. Yujia helped in the front, in case the back pushed the wheelchair in the wrong direction and it hit the corner. Xiao Wanru nodded. She really couldn't leave at this time. Chu Liuqian's hand was still tightly holding her wrist, and he didn't intend to let go at this time. "Your Highness doesn't like to take medicine?" Xiao Wanru asked casually after taking a few steps. "I don't like to take medicine. When I was in Jiangzhou, Fifth Miss also saw that he always took medicine day by day. Sometimes he especially didn't want to take it and said that it was useless anyway. Xiao Xuanzi's voice became low, and his face was very ugly. He said as he walked. So we just let him waste his body like this? Xiao Wanru bit her lip and said, "Who can control our master?" In the past, he lived alone in the prince's mansion, and he was the only master in the whole mansion. If he didn't want to take the medicine, no one could control him. Occasionally, when Dr. Qi was angry and wanted to leave, he would listen to him and take the medicine. After entering the Imperial Palace, he didn't allow us to tell the Empress Dowager about it. Xiao Xuanzi's voice dimmed, and he almost said weakly. He was alone, and his father and mother died. From this point of view, he was really similar to Chu Luchen. Because he was alone, when he was in a bad mood, he would waste his body. His body was originally so poor. It could be imagined that if it went on like this, there would be no cure for him. Her watery eyes fell slightly on the face of the handsome young man who seemed to come out of a painting, and she inexplicably sympathized with him in the same boat. Even if he was doted on by everyone in the world, so what? He had no father or mother, which was destined to be a lonely child. He lost his father before he was born, and he lost his mother soon after he was born. At that time, he was still a baby in swaddling clothes. In this way, he seemed to be more pitiful than her. Madame of Duke Xing wanted to hurt her, and no one in Duke Xing's mansion liked her, but Chu Luchen seemed to be in a more difficult situation than her. In the imperial family, except for the Empress Dowager who truly loved him, even the emperor's love for him had some other meaning. As for his cousins, they were all like black-eyed chickens, thinking of ways to take his life. Even if they didn't directly take his life, they still wanted to take his life to create an opportunity for them. They wanted to pave the way for them with his life. In such a situation, if he didn't want to die, he could only rise up. In the last life, he could break out of the encirclement, and he was alone and helpless. It could be seen that he was not simple. He was also a pitiful person. Did he really faint again because of illness? Chu Liuzhou sat in the main hall of the Empress, with only 2 trusted subordinates standing around. Hearing the news just now, he patted the table and said with joy, "This time, it has nothing to do with me. It happened in Imperial Grandmother's palace, and it has something to do with Duke Xing's mansion and Great Elder Princess." Did the Empress Dowager really marry the new 5th Miss Xiao for him? The Empress paid attention to another direction and frowned tightly. The news was guessed, and many palace servants saw the jade pendant given by the Empress Dowager. "Mother, no matter who he married, does it matter? Can he live until he gets married?" Although Imperial Grandmother gave him the jade pendant, didn't the 5th Miss Xiao say that she would go to the nunnery to observe mourning for her biological mother? 3 years of filial piety. After 3 years, it's uncertain whether this patient can still live or not. You see, he also knows his illness, so he doesn't want to live from time to time and make such a scene. Chu Luchen used to have such things happen in the palace. At first, the imperial physicians didn't know it, and they were very anxious. But later, they gradually knew that Prince Chen didn't want to live at all, so he made such a scene. Some people felt pity for him, some lamented, and some felt sorry for him. They all said that Prince Chen was unparalleled handsome, but his fate was full of twists and turns. They were afraid that he was a man without luck. He almost became the crown prince, but he was so close. Since he was born, he had been sick. Even if he wanted to save his life, he might not be able to do it. "You're right." The Empress breathed a sigh of relief. Not to mention whether Xiao Wanru could marry into Prince Chen's mansion, she was not favored in Duke Xing's mansion. Even if she really had a chance to marry into Prince Chen's mansion in the future, she would not be a concern. Duke Xing's mansion would not stand on Prince Chen's mansion's side for her. "Mother, we don't need to pay more attention to this patient who sometimes loses his temper and seeks death. I think we don't need to pay more attention to him. I'm just afraid that someone will kill him and hurt us. Just pay more attention to him and don't let him get too close to me." But Chu Luiwei has been very active recently. Chu Liuzhou sneered and slammed his hand on the table. "It has always been to establish the legitimate son. What do you mean by establishing the eldest son? He is just the eldest son of a concubine. Does he really think that he is noble? Thinking that someone in the imperial court said so, Chu Liuzhou became angry and a bit of hostility appeared in his eyes. Not only Chu Luiyue, but also Prince Cheng. You should also pay attention to him. The empress saw further and reminded her son. Mother, you worry too much. Prince Cheng is still unwilling to get married. What else can he think? Even if he fights for the world, so what? If he doesn't get married, he won't even have children. You don't see how hard he is trying to get rid of the marriage bestowed by father. It seems that he is really going to become a monk. Chu Liuzhou waved his hand disapprovingly. He thought of the various misses from aristocratic families he saw in Prince Cheng's mansion that day. They not only failed to attract Prince Cheng's attention, but also made him avoid them like a tiger. He even used the shameless daughter of Ningyuan army general's mansion as an excuse to escape. Was marriage so difficult to solve? Wasn't it a good thing? Not only could he marry a beautiful woman he liked, but he could also get the support of the beautiful woman's family. Reaching out to pinch his chin, Chu Liuzhou felt that he must choose the most suitable one. Prince Cheng didn't want it, but he wanted it. Not only did he want it, but he also wanted to choose a few more. Who would complain about having too much help? Prince Cheng is not simple. Zhou, don't take it lightly. If he really has no desire, why did he sneak to the capital city that day? On such a busy day, shouldn't he be calmly guarding the Buddha statue and reciting more sutras? Why did he sneak down the mountain? Also, you said that he has no children. It's not easy to have children. He is not much older than you. He can directly take in 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. It doesn't matter how many children he wants. Seeing Chu Liuzhou's indifferent look, the empress's face became more and more serious. She thought about the matter of Prince Cheng several times and became more vigilant. It's true. Mother, I'll send more people to keep an eye on him. Does he really want to wait until father dies and let him inherit the throne? He doesn't know whether he is as capable as father. Chu Liuzhou sneered. It was a joke to say that an elder brother could have children. Father didn't need a younger brother since he had so many sons. Don't think so much. Come and see which family you like. These are the candidates I have chosen for you. Seeing that her son had taken it seriously, the empress didn't say anything more. It was not urgent. She took out a stack of paintings and handed them to him. Now the first thing to think about was her son's marriage. Chapter 463. Choose a good marriage, which will be of great benefit to your highness. Today, the Empress Dowager gave the 5th Miss of Shao's mansion a jade pendant and heard that Prince Chen was in the side hall. She also asked them to meet. Maybe the 5th Miss Shao was engaged to Prince Chen. Then it will be the turn of the other masters. Your Highness, have a look. This is the information of the misses to be married from each mansion that I have sorted out for you. You can choose carefully. In Chu Liuyue's Prince Yu's mansion, Mr. Liu, who was sitting opposite Chu Luiyue, asked Xiao Qizi to send him a stack of information. There were no portraits, but Chu Luiyue had basically seen most of them. Even if he had not seen them before, there were rumors outside. He also sent the information about the rumors to Chu Luiyue. It was extremely important for Chu Luiyue to choose a suitable wife. Chu Luiyue flipped through a few casually and put them down without much interest. There was incense burning in the room, and the curling fragrance spread into the whole space of the room with the wind blowing through the window. It was very light and elegant. Mixed cabbage, flowing left and right. I can't ask for more. Chu Luiyue sighed in a low voice, walked to the window with his hands clasped behind his back, looked at the scenery outside the window, and began to ponder. Mr. Liu smiled and waved his hand to let Xiao Qizi leave. Then he said, Your Highness, if you sit in that position, all kinds of women will be useless to you. Why do you care about a woman? Moreover, I think this first miss doesn't have much feelings for you. Mr. Liu, you have gone too far. She is just a girl in the boudoir. Chu Luiyue frowned unhappily, turned around, walked to the table, and sat down again with an unhappy look. Yes, you are right. I was wrong. But do you think it is a good time to marry this first miss? Not to mention that first Miss Xiao has not said that she likes you, even Duke Xing's mansion has not officially said that they like you. It is not good for you to give the position of the legal wife to someone who does not like you very much. Mr. Lu smiled good-naturedly, but he secretly despised her in his heart. In Sir Lu's view, this eldest Miss Xiao was a scheming person. On one hand, she appeared to be polite and kept a distance from his prince, but on the other hand, she hinted at everything and exchanged letters. She seemed to be shy before she said anything. At first glance, it was obvious that she was deliberately seducing his prince, but she did not give him a definite answer. He was not Chu Luiyue. Although he had opened a mansion, he was still a teenager and had seen few women. It was reasonable for him to be bewitched by a moment of passion. This kind of hesitant and welcoming attitude was most common in the brothels. She refused to let go, but she refused to tell the truth. She kept hanging in front of others. She was a fickle woman. In addition, Duke Xing's attitude had been unclear. It seemed that he was hesitating and seemed to have something else in mind. Mr. Lu didn't know what exactly it was, so he could only observe slowly. Chu Luiyue picked up the documents at hand and looked at another one. His face calmed down and he nodded. "You're right. Let's pick a few of them first. Imperial grandmother will probably choose a princess for us. We can put Miss Xiao's matter aside for now, but we can't let Chu Liuzhou choose her. He could not marry Xiao Yanru now, but he could not let her marry into Prince Zhou's mansion. Don't worry, Your Highness. Although the Empress also likes Duke Xing's family background, she has her own family to take care of. She has several nieces who are good and should be selected this time. It is necessary to choose a princess to maintain the glory of the Empress's family. Miss Xiao's reputation is really good. If she can't be the princess, the main wife can't suppress her." Mr. Lu said calmly. It was not just a superficial meaning. In his opinion, no mansion would be in chaos if Xiao Yanru married her. She didn't want to show any substantial power, but wanted to occupy a high position. If she married her as the main wife, she didn't have the intention to help others wholeheartedly. If she married her as a concubine, she would want to move up. In the end, her family would be in chaos. Moreover, she would fish for fame like those scholars. She was really not a good candidate for marriage. Chu Luiyue nodded repeatedly and breathed a sigh of relief. Although he was reluctant to leave Xiao Yanru, he didn't have to marry her now. As long as she wanted to, there would be plenty of opportunities in the future. Then everything will be as Mr. Lu said. Let's choose her first. Chu Luiyue picked up another piece of information and carefully reviewed it this time. When Xiao Wanru left, she walked through the gate of Prince Chen's mansion and used Chu Liuchen's carriage to send her to Ru and Great Elder Princess's mansion. However, she was stopped in front of Great Elder Princess's mansion. "Fifth Miss, old madam is waiting for you." An old maid stood respectfully in front of the carriage and said, "Let's go down and have a look." Xiao Wanru immediately understood who the so-called old madam was. She immediately got off the carriage with the help of Yu Jie. As expected, she saw a carriage of Duke Xing's mansion parked on the side of the road. She slightly raised the corner of her mouth and showed a trace of sarcasm. Then she restrained her expression and walked over slowly. "Come up and have a talk." Before she could salute, a cold voice came from the carriage. A servant girl had already come over and set up a small stool. Xiao Wanru got off the carriage with the help of Yu Jie. The curtain of the carriage was lifted to one side. Xiao Wanru saw old madam sitting high in the carriage. She looked at Xiao Wanru coldly with a gloomy face. Xiao Wanru went in and bowed to old madam. "Sit down first. You don't have to be so polite in the carriage." Old madam said coldly. "Yes." Xiao Wanru sat down obediently and then lowered her head, waiting for old madam to speak. Old madam was quite satisfied with Xiao Wanru's obedient behavior. "You are a miss of our Duke Xing's mansion, not a member of Great Elder Princess's mansion. If you really live in Great Elder Princess's mansion, some words will be easy to say, but not pleasant to hear. It will even affect the reputation of Great Elder Princess and Duke Xing's mansion." Old madam said. Xiao Wanru nodded slightly but did not say anything. Of course, what old madam wanted to say was more than these. She was just living here temporarily now and would go to Yuhui Nunnery in a few days. "It is indeed a great filial piety for you to go to Yuhui Nunnery to observe mourning for your parents for 3 years. But after 3 years, you have to go back to Duke Xing's mansion. No matter how powerful Great Elder Princess is, this matter cannot be discussed. Old Madam said coldly. Thinking of how Great Elder Princess suppressed her in front of Empress Dowager just now, she felt sullen in her heart. It's all up to you, Old Madam. Xiao Wanru said softly in a low voice. It's great that you can understand this. No matter what, you are a miss of Duke Xing's mansion and the only daughter of my eldest brother. I will not treat you badly. As for your marriage, it is still too early to talk about it now. It will be a little late to talk about it 3 years later. But there is no other way. You can't talk about marriage during the mourning period. Speaking of this, Old Madam was also very depressed. Just in front of Empress Dowager, and Great Elder Princess actually snatched the right to talk about the engagement with her. She was Xiao Wanru's biological grandmother, but in the end, she failed to snatch it from and Great Elder Princess and let her have some right to talk about it. It was not easy for Xiao Wanru to answer. She just lowered her head and pretended to be obedient. She gently twisted the handkerchief in her hand and then loosened it. She knew that Old Madam did not want her to answer. Of course, she came to inform her. Sure enough, Old Madam paused for a moment and said, "Have you been engaged before? If you have been engaged, you can wait a few years and get married directly." "I am still young and have not been engaged," Xiao Wanru said in a low voice. "It's good that you haven't been engaged. Your previous identity is not as good as your current identity, so the previous engagement is naturally not very good. I will ask your second aunt to choose a new one for you in the future. I heard that when you were in Jiangzhou, you even snatched a husband from the first Miss of Qin's mansion. Such a thing is not allowed in the future. It's okay that you didn't know the rules in the past. If this happened in Duke Xing's mansion, a piece of white silk would have been cut off." Old Madam warned sternly. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. Since Old Madam said that she had a high status now and said that if she recognized the previous engagement, she would also recognize it. It was obvious that she wanted to marry her at will. Fortunately, she had hidden away for a few years. Otherwise, something terrible might happen at that time. As for Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion, she also felt that it was very ironic. In the last life, it was said that the dignified first Miss Xiao of Duke Xing's mansion had always done things dishonorably. She became the emperor's favorite concubine, but she also hooked up with Chu Luiyue. She really thought that no one could see it. It seemed that Old Madam's so-called rules were aimed at her. Old Madam, you can send someone to investigate the matter in Jiangzhou Prefecture. Justice lies in people's hearts. I believe that everyone in Jiangzhou Prefecture can prove it for me." The slander in Old Madam's words was too obvious. Xiao Wanru slowly raised her head and explained with indifferent eyes. "You, how dare you speak to me like this?" Old Madam flew into a rage. "Old Madam, do you mean that you want me to admit this kind of thing that will damage my reputation? If so, what good will it do for Duke Xing's mansion?" Xiao Wanru said unmoved. She could pretend to be docile, but she couldn't pour dirty water on her head. Old Madam stopped her carriage and poured all the dirty water on her head without saying anything. If she didn't say anything this time, there would be more dirty water in the future. The words that Old Madam disliked her had already been spread out. Old Madam could not go too far. Moreover, she had the support of her maternal grandma. Old Madam was so angry that her face changed greatly after hearing Xiao Wanru's words. "Are you going to contradict me? I don't dare. I just want to tell the truth. Even if this matter is brought to the Empress Dowager, I will ask the Empress Dowager to investigate it." Xiao Wanru said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. You have grown up and I can't control you anymore, right?" Old Madam reached out to Xiao Wanru and said angrily. "Old Madam, please calm down. Will you be happy and not angry if I admit this kind of dirty thing?" Xiao Wanru tilted her head innocently and said seriously. Her words almost made Old Madam want to vomit blood. Even if she had such an idea, she would not really say it. "Old Madam, please calm down. The fifth miss is just explaining what happened in Jiangzhou. She is afraid that you will misunderstand her. Don't worry. It seems that this matter has nothing to do with the fifth Mississippi. It is not what you heard outside. It is good that it is not like that. You should be happy. Nanny Yu came out to smooth things over and said with a smile. She said it as if old madam really cared about Xiao Wanru. Chapter 464. I believe you for the time being. Then tell me what happened last night? How could such a mess happen? Duke Xing's mansion has always had a good reputation for so many years. Why did such a thing happen on the day you recognized it? Old madam suppressed her anger and asked in a deep voice with a straight face. Xiao Wanru was so angry that she almost laughed. How partial she was to think that she was the one who caused the trouble last night. Everyone could see clearly that someone wanted to frame her. Old madam thought that she had caused trouble and ruined the reputation of Duke Xing's mansion for so many years. Old madam, please find out the truth and seek justice for Wanru. Xiao Wanru raised her watery eyes and looked at old madam without avoiding her eyes. Who doesn't want Wanru to return to the family? Who has such a great hatred against Wanru and wants to kill Wanru? Who can come and go freely in Duke Xing's mansion and plot against me? Xiao Wanru said slowly. Her watery eyes were as clear as water. She looked straight at old madam as if she could see through people's hearts. How dare you? Old madam was so angry that her face turned livid and her hands trembled. Old madam, don't be angry. Don't be angry. Be careful of your health. Nanny Yu was shocked when she saw this. She hurriedly reached out to pat her on the back a few times to help her recover. She gently blamed Xiao Wanru and said, "Fifth miss, how can you talk to old madam like this? Old madam is doing this for your own good. She wants to tell you something important. For my own good, she wants me to bear all the responsibility this time? Or do I have to say that I plotted against myself, that I was the one who thought that way because my mind was not clear?" Xiao Wanru said unhurriedly. Her words made Nanny Yu speechless. She knew old madam's mind very well. Old madam stopped them today for this reason. She did want the fifth miss to bear part of the responsibility. In this way, it would be easier for Duke Xing's mansion to explain and they wouldn't have to bear too much responsibility. However, after hearing Xiao Wanru's words, not to mention Nanny Yu, even old madam couldn't say anything. He patted the wall of the carriage repeatedly and said angrily, "Oh, she has the protection of great elder princess. Since she looks down on Duke Xing's mansion, let her do whatever she wants. Let's go." Was he trying to chase her away because they didn't get along? Xiao Wanru stood up and bowed deeply to old madam. Then she helped Yu Jie get out of the carriage under old madam's incredulous gaze. She bowed respectfully to the carriage and said, "Old madam, Wanru takes her leave." "Go, go!" Old madam in the carriage said angrily. Xiao Wanru naturally turned around and went to the carriage of Prince Chen's mansion, and then turned into Great Elder Princess mansion. Old madam, don't be angry. You have to take care of yourself." Looking at old madam's pale face, Nanny Yu urged her anxiously. Look at her, look at her. She has the same temper as her mother. She's so annoying. She has no respect for her elders. Not only does she talk back to her elders, she even dares to show me that attitude. She's really amazing. The mother and daughter are the same, they are not good people. Old madam scolded. Old madam, don't be angry. We are in front of Great Elder Princess mansion. Nanny Yu was anxious. Old madam's voice was a little loud. Since they were near the roadside, many people might have heard it. Someone had said that old madam of Duke Xing's mansion didn't like this newly recognized granddaughter and secretly plotted against her. Now old madam's attitude was more and more gossipy. Old madam also knew that it was not appropriate to say this at this time, but she felt very uncomfortable because her anger had accumulated in her chest. Let's go back to the mansion first. Old madam exhaled heavily, calmed down slowly, and then said coldly. Seeing that old madam finally calmed down, Nanny Yu breathed a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that old madam's old illness would relapse. If something really happened, she, as a servant, couldn't bear it. She suddenly remembered that when old madam had an accident before, it was Fifth Miss who helped her. For a moment, she didn't know what to say and could only sigh in her heart. After all, Old Madam and Fifth Miss were not destined to be grandmother and granddaughter. She ordered the carriage to turn back to Duke Xing's mansion. It was quiet in the carriage. After a long while, Old Madam asked coldly, "What do you think we should do about it?" She also calmed down at this time and frowned. She couldn't be so angry without an explanation. Now even the Empress Dowager Queen knew it. "We can only investigate it carefully." Nanny Yu persuaded vaguely. "Old Madam, you are old. Let Madam investigate it. Madam has always been capable and will find out a conclusion. Now we can only do this." Old Madam patted the wall of the carriage beside her resentfully and scolded, "If she can bear part of the responsibility, our whole Duke Xing's mansion won't be pushed to the teeth of the storm." She didn't grow up in Duke Xing's mansion. It seems that she is selfish like her. Yes, Old Madam is right. Old Madam will teach her slowly in the future. Nanny Yu said with a flattering smile. "I want to leave her alone and then teach her. Look, such a thing happened? She is really a troublemaker. Our Duke Xing's mansion has been peaceful and well-behaved for so many years and has a good reputation. Look at how much the reputation of the whole Duke Xing's mansion has fallen after she came back for only one day." Old Madam said angrily. "After going back, ask Madam to come to me once and find a few people to take the responsibility. If one person can't do it, ask two people to take the responsibility. Just say it is a coincidence," Old Madam said again. "Don't worry, Old Madam. I will ask Madam to come here immediately after I go back." It was easy to answer this question. Nanny Yu hurriedly answered and sighed secretly. In fact, she sympathized with the Fifth Miss, but she had no choice. After all, she was just a servant. Even if she wanted to speak up for the Fifth Miss, she didn't dare to. Xiao Wanru originally wanted to go to the Yuhui nunnery early the next morning, but and Great Elder Princess didn't allow it. She said that she needed to prepare some things for her and contact the abbess of the Yuhui nunnery to prepare a courtyard. These things couldn't be done in a hurry. She would live in the nunnery for 3 years. The courtyard of the Yuhui nunnery had to be prepared, and Great Elder Princess had to send someone to have a look. Although it was a quiet practice, it was not an ascetic monk. Some necessary things had to be redecorated. There were some misses from aristocratic families who practiced in the nunnery, such as Xiao Yenru, but there had never been one who stayed for 3 years. Girls only had such a short period of time in their prime. How could they be delayed for 3 years? Although it was a little early for Xiao Wanru to get engaged at her age, it would be best for her to get engaged after a year or two, and then to become an adult after 2 or 3 years. But now Xiao Wanru was going to enter the nunnery to observe mourning. After feeling distressed, Great Elder Princess scolded Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion for being partial. After that, she asked Xiao Wanru to stay for a few more days. She asked someone to get everything ready in these days, and then let Xiao Wanru go to the Yuhui nunnery with ease. The time was set after the 15th of the first lunar month. Great Elder Princess finally recognized her granddaughter, but she was forced to enter the nunnery. Great Elder Princess felt distressed and angry, but she also knew that this was the best way. For her granddaughter, Duke Xing's mansion was a place of tigers and wolves, so it was best for her to leave. There was another thing that Great Elder Princess was very concerned about. After Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion left, the Empress Dowager also told her that the jade pendant she gave Xiao Wanru just now was the jade pendant of the future Princess Chen. That was to say, she temporarily engaged Xiao Wanru for Chu Luchen, but didn't announce it at the moment. Great Elder Princess also wanted to marry Chu Luchen. Great Elder Princess had mixed feelings about the Empress Dowager's words. She liked Chu Luchen very much. It could be said that Chu Luchen had made a lot of efforts secretly to recognize her granddaughter this time. But thinking of Chu Liuchen's health, Great Elder Princess felt sad. How many years could his health last? At that time, wouldn't her granddaughter become a widow? Fortunately, the Empress Dowager also said that if Chu Luchen really couldn't survive, their relationship would not be made public. In this way, Xiao Wanru could have a future. But when Chu Luchen was well, Xiao Wanru was engaged to Chu Luchen. This matter had to be settled first. It seemed that this could only be settled in this way. At this time, Great Elder Princess didn't even know whether she hoped that something bad would happen to Chu Luchin or that he would always be well. The most important question was, could he get better? Because of her worry, and Great Elder Princess specially went to Prince Chen's mansion to check Chu Liuchen's complexion under the pretext of seeing his condition. When he went back yesterday, he went back lying down. At the thought of this, Great Elder Princess felt worried. She had a hard life, so did her daughter. But she couldn't let her granddaughter, who had just been recognized, also have a hard life. Chu Luchen met and Great Elder Princess in the study. Seeing Great Elder Princess come in, he stood up and bowed respectfully, and then asked Great Elder Princess to take a seat. "How is your body?" Great Elder Princess didn't say much. She put down the teacup in her hand and asked with a frown. "I'm fine now. I'm slowly recuperating." Chu Luchen answered gently, and his expression and behavior were very peaceful. "Haven't you been recuperating before, but it didn't work?" Great Elder Princess knew that this was a little hurtful, but thinking of her poor granddaughter, she had to ask. Before, there was only Dr. Qi to recuperate, and now there is Mingqiu Nun, which happens to make up for the part that Dr. Qi is not good at. Xiao Xuanzi explained with a smile. Great Elder Princess's heart skipped a beat. She stared at Chu Luchen and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Will you get better?" "Grandaunt, don't worry. I will get better." Chu Luchen smiled leisurely, looking elegant and handsome. "Why did you faint yesterday?" Great Elder Princess's eyes narrowed into a sharp point, and her hands trembled slightly. She was a little excited. "When I entered the palace in the morning, I deliberately didn't take any medicine. It happens that the medicine can be changed," Chu Luchen said slowly, as if he had already guessed Great Elder Princess's question. "Will you get better?" Great Elder Princess repeated the question, and her heart was in her throat. "I heard that you have always given up on yourself. Even immortals couldn't save a patient who wanted to die." Chapter 465. Xiao Wanru knew that Great Elder Princess went to Prince Chen's mansion, but she didn't know what Great Elder Princess said to Chu Luchen. She only knew that Great Elder Princess left worriedly, but when she came back, she was calm and smiled more. She asked about Chu Liuchen's illness indirectly. Knowing that he was now taking medicine and seemed to be in a good mood, she was relieved. After that, she went back to her courtyard to prepare for going to the Yuhui nunnery. Shui Rulin accompanied Madame Dowager here once and moved all the things that Xiao Wanru had brought to the capital city before. Shui Rulin was very happy that Xiao Wanru could return to her clan, but she was worried about Xiao Wanru. She heard that everyone in Duke Xing's mansion didn't like Xiao Wanru. Thinking that Xiao Wanru would meet such relatives who were not close to her after she returned to her clan and was even forced to enter the nunnery, Shui Rulin felt sad and cried in Xiao Wanru's yard for a while. In the end, he was finally persuaded. Madame Dowager looked much stronger. She just asked about Xiao Wanru's health and her future plans with concern. Then she sighed and hesitated to say something. "Grandma, don't worry. I will take good care of myself. Besides, the Yue nunnery is not like other nunneries. I will be fine. If you miss me, you can come to see me at any time." Xiao Wanru comforted her with a smile. Even though she had no blood relationship with old Madame Qin, in her heart, old Madame Qin, who loved her dearly, was still her biological grandmother. As for the other one, she didn't know how to address her, so she often called her old Madame. Obviously, the other one also had feelings for Xiao Wanru and thought it was good to call her old Madame. "Child, your identity is different now. I can't come to see you at any time." Old Madame Qin sighed and reached out to touch Xiao Wanru's head. Shui Rulin wiped her tears and said with a forced smile, "Mother, don't be sad. Great Elder Princess will protect Wanru." "Yes, Grandma, I'll be fine. Grandma will protect me." Xiao Wanru reached out to shake old Madame Qin's hand and said coquettishly as usual. Looking at the obedient little girl in front of her, whose white and tender face was full of admiration, old Madame Qin's eyes turned red. She was really reluctant to hand over the little girl she had raised for so many years. She really wanted to support her for the rest of her life. "Grandma, don't be sad. I'm still your granddaughter. Even if I have other relatives, grandma and mother. Aunt Shui are still my relatives. Xiao Wanru paused for a moment and changed the way she addressed old Madame Qin. It didn't matter if she continued to call old Madame Qin by her original title. Speaking of which, old Madame Qin did raise her. Without old Madame Qin's protection, she could not have survived under Madame D's hands for so many years. But Shui Ruolin couldn't do it. Duke Xing's mansion and great elder princess would not agree to it. Good boy, as long as you do well in the future. Old Madame Qin turned sideways, wiped her tears a little, and then turned around and smiled again. Grandma, I'll write a prescription later. You can go back and adjust it for a while. Your old illness will be cured slowly. Seeing that old Madame Qin was still sad, Xiao Wanru changed the topic and said with a smile. She had felt old Madame Qin's pulse just now and found that she was much better than before. I'm fine. You can observe filial piety in the nunnery. Your father and mother are also pitiful. The sons of an aristocratic family have fallen into such a situation. You should indeed observe filial piety for them. Old Madame Qin sighed. How could she not understand the temperament of the little girl she raised? Mother, Wanru is fine. Don't worry. Next time you miss Wanru, I'll go to Yuhui Nunnery with you. Shui Ruolin also comforted old Madame Qin. You'd better not go out in your current condition. Looking at Shui Ruolin's bulging belly, old Madame Qin said with an increasingly gentle face. Aunt Shui, stay at home and don't go anywhere. Don't interfere in the matter of Qin Yuru marrying into Duke Yong's mansion. Father, General Qin deal with it. If it's not done well, both inside and outside will be in trouble. Xiao Wanru also reminded her worriedly. It's indeed inconvenient for me to interfere in Yuru's matter. But her mother is like this now. If I don't interfere, it will be a mess. Shui Ruolin said with a headache. She didn't want to interfere in Qin Yuru's marriage at all. But in the current situation, she had to interfere. Qin Huaiyong was a man, and there were always many things he couldn't take care of. Let General Qin decide everything. Aunt Shui will only do some things that have been decided. After that, I will let General Qin have a look. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and reminded Shui Ruolin. She glanced at Shui Ruolin's belly. With this child, Shui Ruolin would have someone to rely on in the future. As for whether Qin Huaiyong was partial and wanted to give Qin Yuru more dowry, Xiao Wanru didn't think it was a big deal. Even if Qin Yuru emptied the entire general's mansion, she could slowly save up the dowry in the future. Shui Ruolin had always been obedient to Xiao Wanru. Hearing Xiao Wanru's words, she nodded repeatedly and kept it in mind. After Xiao Wanru accompanied old Madame Qin and Shui Ruolin for lunch, old Madame Qin left with Shui Ruolin. Before leaving, Shui Ruolin secretly pulled Xiao Wanru aside and asked her about the lady surnamed Lu, the wife of Qian Yukai, the first young master Qian, who was trapped in the backyard. After being trapped for so long, she seemed to be much smarter recently. According to Xiao Wanru's instructions, she asked the two old maids guarding her to gossip about Qian Yukai outside from time to time. At first, the lady surnamed Lu cursed angrily, but now she listened obediently without getting angry, as if she were talking about someone else's family. Xiao Wanru asked Shui Ruolin to lock her up for a while and let her out after the results were released. What would happen after that had nothing to do with her. Qin Huaiyong locked her up, and he had to agree to let her out. Shui Ruolin would not show her face. It was the old maids who gossiped. It could be said that the whole thing had nothing to do with Shui Ruolin. However, this also shocked Qian Yukai and the lady surnamed Lu so that they did not dare to talk casually in the future. If they really annoyed the Qin's mansion, the two of them would not be strong enough. If they could let them go today, they could also make trouble for them in the future. After suffering a loss, the lady surnamed Lu would not be so stupid to stand in the way. Now she wanted to deal with Qian Yukai and her sister, so she did not dare to provoke Shui Ruolin again. In the next few days, she packed up her things almost every day. Then she watched the carriage take away the packed things and continued to pack up. She heard that the courtyard of the Yuhui Nunnery had been renovated. Nanny Gao had gone to see it in person and said that the place was very quiet and safe, so that Great Elder Princess could rest assured. She even whispered a few words to Great Elder Princess, who nodded repeatedly and approved of that place. In addition to packing up, she spent the rest of the time with Great Elder Princess and How. Although the grandmother and the grandchildren lived a simple but warm and happy life. The night of the 15th day of the first lunar month was very lively, but Xiao Wanru did not go out. Although she also wanted to see what the first 15th day of the first lunar month in the capital was like, it was not convenient for her to go out in her current condition. She could only stay in Great Elder Princess's mansion. Fortunately, Great Elder Princess also thought that the two little ones were both young, so she specially asked someone to decorate the whole Great Elder Princess's mansion. There were all kinds of lanterns lit everywhere in the garden, which were beautiful and bright. Hao was so happy that he almost went crazy. He ran around with Xiao Wanru to guess riddles and pick up the lanterns by the way. It was not until the middle of the night that Great Elder Princess ordered him to go back to rest. Meanwhile, he asked a few servants to hold the spoils he had just guessed and shouted, "Sister, you must come to see how, tomorrow." Xiao Wanru's heart softened. After repeatedly agreeing, she coaxed him to go back. Early the next morning, Xiao Wanru said goodbye to Great Elder Princess and went to the door. An ordinary carriage took the two servant girls, Yu Jie and Chu Lu, to the Yuhui nunnery. When she left, Xiao Yuanhao hadn't gotten up yet. He was still sleeping because he had made so much noise last night. Great Elder Princess watched her granddaughter leave alone and couldn't stop crying. At that time, it was her daughter who was forced to leave, and now it was her granddaughter who was forced to leave. After being persuaded to stop, she freshened up and went to Duke Xing's mansion with Nanny Gao in the carriage. She couldn't get rid of this depression. Madam of Duke Xing received Bu and Great Elder Princess and led her to old Madam's courtyard. Madam of Duke Xing has always been smart. You should have found out that Zhuozhuo was set on fire, right? When Great Elder Princess asked as she walked in. This matter has basically been found out. It was caused by the two servant girls who served the fifth miss at that time. Now they are still being interrogated. Madam of Duke Xing said with a flattering smile. Servant girls? Could it be that the two servant girls came to your mansion because they were jealous of Zhuozhuo? Could it be that they wanted to kill Zhuozhuo at the cost of their lives? And Great Elder Princess sneered and squinted at Madam of Duke Xing. Great Elder Princess, you must be joking. Madam of Duke Xing said dryly, but she was trembling in her heart. Although Ru and Great Elder Princess didn't guess it 100%, it was the general meaning. Now she had to explain it. One of the two servant girls is the daughter of the old maid who guards the warehouse, and the other is a servant girl who has just served the 5th Mississippi. The cause was that the servant girl brought by the 5th Miss scolded the servant girl, and the servant girl wanted to scare the servant girl of the 5th Mississippi. I didn't expect that such a big thing would happen by chance. By chance? Great Elder Princess stopped and looked sharply at Madam of Duke Xing. By chance. The servant girl didn't know that the purified kerosene was so powerful. She had a good relationship with the daughter of the old maid who guards the warehouse, so she specially asked for some. But she didn't know that she would cause such a terrible trouble. Madam of Duke Xing said with a flattering smile. Your mansion is going to take two servant girls to solve the problem? Great Elder Princess sneered and walked inside again. Seeing that Great Elder Princess just said this and didn't ask any more questions, Madam of Duke Xing breathed a sigh of relief and felt complacent in her heart. If she insisted that this was done by a servant, it would be difficult for Great Elder Princess to force her to admit the crime. But the next moment, Great Elder Princess's face turned livid. Chapter 466. While talking, they had arrived at the courtyard of old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion. Rain Great Elder Princess walked in familiarly without asking Madam of Duke Xing to lead the way. Madam of Duke Xing began to sweat on her forehead. She knew that this matter was difficult to deal with. But what else could she do? Could she push a master out? What was more, she still didn't know who did it. Who made things difficult for Xiao Wanru and herself? Thinking of that courtyard, Madam of Duke Xing's heart was bleeding. However, not only old Madam, but also Duke Xing was asking her whether she did it. If she did it, it would be like stabbing a knife into her heart. Xiao Wanru was not so important that she could stab herself in the heart and burn the courtyard that she had prepared for her son for so many years. After a short pause, he hurriedly walked inside. In the main room, Great Elder Princess had already talked to Old Madam. Looking at her aggressive look, she knew that Old Madam had suffered a setback here again. Great Elder Princess, you can't be so unreasonable. This matter will be investigated wherever it is. It happened because of the two servant girls. Do you really want the whole Duke Xing's mansion to bear the responsibility? No one wanted fifth girl to die. Our mansion also lost a lot of things, and that courtyard was carefully prepared. Old Madam's face was not very good. Early in the morning, she thought that she could sleep peacefully, but she was hurriedly woken up. When Great Elder Princess came over, she was interrogated again. No one was in a good mood. She was more and more convinced that Xiao Wanru was a troublemaker who stirred up this family without any benefits. It was better not to recognize this granddaughter and let her wander outside. Do you want to pay for my granddaughter's life with two servant girls? Great Elder Princess said with a gloomy face, and then stood up. In this case, let's go to the Empress Dowager to report this matter now. Great Elder Princess, this matter is also a private matter of my mansion. Your granddaughter is the fifth girl of our mansion. Don't I care about her? Will I watch her being bullied by the servant girls? I have sent the two servant girls to the yamen. They confessed to the arson case. Even in front of the Empress Dowager, I will say the same. Old Madam stared at Great Elder Princess and said righteously. Sending them to the yamen meant that Duke Xing's mansion was magnanimous. It was up to the yamen to deal with this matter, and no one could find fault. Although everyone thought that this matter must have something to do with Duke Xing's mansion, it was now handled by the yamen. Good, you actually pushed this matter to the government. There must be someone in your family who is lax in managing the household, right? Great Elder Princess was well aware of the twists and turns in it. Her face turned livid with anger at the shamelessness of Duke Xing's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. At this time, she did not intend to sit down and talk nicely. After finishing her words, she turned around and walked out. She wouldn't let her granddaughter marry into the family so easily no matter what. Great Elder Princess, you and our mansion have troubled the Empress Dowager again and again. Aren't you afraid that the Empress Dowager will find it troublesome? Seeing that this matter was going to be blown up again, Old Madam fiercely stabbed Great Elder Princess. However, Great Elder Princess ignored her and left angrily with her servants. Madam of Duke Xing chased after her for a few steps but failed to catch up. She stamped her feet helplessly and came back to discuss with Old Madam. Mother, what should we do? If the Empress Dowager asks, what should we say? Madam of Duke Xing was a little flustered because she had never been strong in front of Great Elder Princess. At the beginning, it was for the matter of Infanta Qinghua. Now it was for the matter of Xiao Wanru. It seemed that Ruian Great Elder Princess and Duke Xing's mansion were on bad terms. Let her do it. We'll just say that this matter is investigated by the government and has nothing to do with us. Although it's a little unbelievable that two maids schemed against the new master, there are all kinds of things in the world. It's not impossible for this kind of thing to happen. Old Madam raised her eyelids and said coldly, Yes, Mother, I know, but the Empress Dowager will think that we make trouble again and again. Madam of Duke Xing was still worried and said anxiously after pacing around for a few times. Do what you should do. It is not us who want to make trouble in front of the Empress Dowager. It is Great Elder Princess who makes trouble and always goes to the palace. Great Elder Princess is to blame. Old Madam said righteously. Mother, you are right. But the relationship between the Empress Dowager and Great Elder Princess has always been good. In addition to some things in the past, the Empress Dowager stands on Great Elder Princess's side in everything. She may ask us to enter the palace again later. Madam of Duke Xing said with fear and panic on her face. Seeing this, Old Madam became more and more angry. She felt that Ruian Great Elder Princess had gone too far. It was obviously not a big thing, but she made it into such a mess, which made the whole capital city laugh at Duke Xing's mansion. Let's go to the palace too. Old Madam stood up with a sullen face and snorted coldly. If she goes to the Empress Dowager, we will go to the Empress. Yes, mother. Please get ready first. I will go to order the carriage first. Seeing old Madam get angry, Madam of Duke Xing said hurriedly. She took a few people back to her courtyard first, and asked someone to get the carriage ready to enter the palace. The Empress was related to old Madam. Although it was a little distant, at least the Empress still recognized old Madam and was very polite and respectful to old Madam in the past. The Empress received the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law in the side hall. After hearing what had happened, she showed sympathy on her face. Is this matter in the hands of the government now? Yes, it has been sent to the government long ago. The government told us after finding out. Madam of Duke Xing reported respectfully. Of course, she would not say that this matter had been concluded yesterday and sent to the government last night. The servant girl had pleaded guilty, so they could directly interrogate her. The details had been deliberated and could stand the interrogation. Since this matter was found out by the government, although your mansion seems to be shirking responsibility, it is reasonable and well-founded. Great Elder Princess can't be so unforgiving, the Empress said with a gentle smile. Her words were on the side of Duke Xing's mansion. Madam of Duke Xing secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and the smile on her face loosened. Your Highness's words are reasonable, but Great Elder Princess has always looked down on our mansion. Speaking of what happened in the past, no one wanted it to happen. Something happened to Princess Qinghua, and my son also had an accident. Who can blame who? Great Elder Princess hates our mansion because of what happened in the past. She will make a big deal out of it if there is any trouble. I hope your Highness can handle it according to justice. Old Madam felt aggrieved and wiped away her tears. She wanted the Empress to give a definite answer. Old Madam, rest assured. Since I know this matter, I have to listen to what the Empress Dowager Queen asks. The Empress Dowager Queen comforted her with a smile, but her words were not accurate and there were some discrepancies. Old Madam was disappointed and wanted to say something, but a palace maid hurried in and reported, the Empress Dowager Queen invites the Empress, Madam of Duke Xing, and Old Madam to go together. The Empress. Madam of Duke Xing looked at the Empress imploringly. Since the Empress Dowager Queen summons us, let's go together. The Empress stood up gracefully and walked out with a group of people. Old Madam and Madam of Duke Xing looked at each other and could only follow. In the Empress Dowager Queen's Palace of Benevolent Peace, Rin, Great Elder Princess, sat beside the Empress Dowager angrily and glared at old Madam of Duke Xing and her daughter-in-law coming in. After they saluted, the Empress Dowager Queen asked them to take a seat. The Empress Dowager Queen sat down beside the Empress Dowager Queen. Looking at the Empress Dowager Queen who looked pale, she asked with concern, Empress Dowager Queen, are you not feeling well? Have you called an imperial physician to have a look? Why do you look so pale? What do you think about the matter of Duke Xing's mansion? The Empress Dowager Queen waved her hand, indicating that she was fine, and glanced at the face of old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion expressionlessly. Empress Dowager Queen, since this matter has been dealt with by the government, let the government deal with it. You are not in good health, so don't worry about this kind of thing. The Empress Dowager Queen smiled softly and reached out to touch the Empress Dowager Queen's teacup to feel the temperature. Then she personally picked up the teapot and poured a little more hot water into the Empress Dowager Queen's cup. Does your mansion have nothing to do with this matter? The Empress Dowager Queen did not care much about the attentive behavior of the Empress Dowager Queen, and her eyes fell on the face of old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion. This. I also. Old Madam did not expect that the Empress Dowager Queen would be so rude when they met this time. After being stunned for a moment, she stood up in panic. Forget it. This matter is not clear now. Both you and Great Elder Princess should make concessions. Even if this matter is solved in this way, it is okay for the government to deal with it, but Duke Xing's mansion should apologize to Great Elder Princess's mansion. They should bear the crime of lax supervision. Why did such a thing happen as soon as the daughter of the first branch of your mansion came back? The Empress Dowager Queen's face became colder and colder. Without letting old Madam speak more, she directly made a conclusion. Her words made old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion totter. Madam of Duke Xing hurriedly reached out to hold old Madam. What? Do you think this matter is serious? The Empress Dowager Queen frowned and looked unhappily at old Madam, whose face had changed dramatically. I dare not. I will prepare a gift to apologize to Great Elder Princess when I go back. Old Madam lowered her head sullenly, concealed the anger in her eyes, and replied respectfully. That's good. Your mansions can be regarded as in-laws. Now you have Xiaowanru. In the future, you will also be connected with each other. How can you go to the palace to quarrel from time to time? What will the officials and the nobles say? The Empress Dowager Queen's face softened and said earnestly. A palace maid had already come over to help the trembling old Madam of Duke Xing sit down. Such a good girl. She is so likable. If I have such a granddaughter, I will definitely wake up with a smile even in my dreams. She is so healthy and beautiful. Chapter 467. Old Madam hurriedly restrained the grievances in her heart and even showed a kind smile on her face. She persuaded, Empress Dowager, don't be sad. Children and grandchildren have their own happiness. Prince Chen will gradually get better. You see, after so many years, isn't Prince Chen's health getting better slowly? This child's body. The Empress Dowager couldn't go on. She was really distressed for her grandson. Thinking of last night when she went to see this child and saw his lifeless look, she felt very uncomfortable and her whole heart ached. Later, when she said something about Xiaowanru, the child became a little interested and occasionally responded to her. Although his voice was very weak, it could be seen that he was in a much better mood. This was also the reason why the Empress Dowager was furious when she heard that Duke Xing's mansion treated Xiaowanru badly this morning. If the fifth miss of Xiao's mansion could make Qin more interested and not be so lifeless in the future, she would definitely protect this girl well and never let anyone bully her. Old Madam, don't be sad. This matter has to be done slowly. Prince Chen's temper will gradually get better. Let him be obedient for the time being. Ruian Great Elder Princess sighed. Just now, the Empress Dowager had mentioned to her about the conversation between the grandmother and the grandson last night. What Great Elder Princess said is very reasonable. At this time, we shouldn't be anxious. Prince Chen needs to take good care of his body and state of mind. If anything happens, let him be first. Old Madam agreed with Great Elder Princess's words without any grudge, and her expression made people feel that she was a kind old lady. As grandmothers, we are old and have no hope. We just hope that the younger generation can get better. Otherwise, what else can we do? These words touched the Empress Dowager's heart, and she nodded repeatedly. The Empress glanced at old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion calmly and frowned slightly. But when she saw Great Elder Princess looking at her, she immediately greeted her with a smile. All of you are right. Let's listen to him for now. The Empress Dowager sighed and made up her mind. Yesterday, he said that his brothers were going to be engaged soon. Given his current situation, he could only be like this. Seeing his lonely appearance, the Empress Dowager agreed to his request at the bedside. What do you think? His brothers were also not in a hurry to get married. They were still young and the royal family had always chosen well. How could they marry at such a young age? If they did not choose the right person, the disaster would not be small. Originally, when he came back, he was a little regretful. Previously, he was indeed preparing to choose concubines for his brothers. When the news spread out, she had no choice but to say such words out of pity. Now the words of old Madam and Great Elder Princess dispelled her doubts. Cher's health was like this, and sometimes he seemed to have lost all hope. She couldn't stimulate him anymore. After thinking this through, the Empress Dowager relaxed a little and said something to Great Elder Princess and old Madam. Although Great Elder Princess was not very willing, she still listened to her words and promised that as long as Duke Xing's mansion handled this matter fairly, she would forgive them. Old Madam promised that after going back, she would immediately go to Great Elder Princess's mansion to apologize. Speaking of this matter, they had failed to supervise it well and did not find that the servant girls in the mansion had bad intentions. In this way, they could make peace. Later, Seeing that the Empress Dowager looked tired, Great Elder Princess, Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion, and Madam of Duke Xing all sensibly said goodbye. The Empress took the opportunity to leave, but was stopped by the Empress Dowager. "Empress, please stay. I have something to tell you." "Yes, Empress Dowager." The Empress answered and sat down again. After Great Elder Princess and others left the main hall, the Empress Dowager stretched out her fingers to rub between her eyebrows and said, "I have said that I will arrange for you and Zhou to be engaged before. Now let's put this matter aside. They are still young and can't choose for a while. It's better to choose slowly. When they are 17 or 18 years old, they will be officially engaged." "Mother, isn't it too late?" The Empress almost couldn't believe her ears. She raised her head in horror and said, she had even prepared candidates. Now, according to the Empress Dowager's meaning, it should be delayed for 2 or 3 years. The Empress felt that she couldn't afford to wait. This was the best 2 or 3 years. How could she waste it in vain? "It's not late. Of course, we have to take a good look at the marriage of the royal children. Otherwise, if something really happens, it will not be a matter of one family and one family." The Empress Dowager said unhappily, and her face darkened. The Empress hurriedly added, "Empress Dowager, you are right. It's indeed inappropriate for the royal children to get married too early, but it's actually okay to choose slowly now, isn't it?" Although the smile on her face was calm, she was anxious in her heart. They had said it well before, but why did she suddenly feel that it was inappropriate? She was upset now and couldn't remember what Duke Xing's daughter-in-law and Great Elder Princess had said to the Empress Dowager just now. "Of course we can look at it, but we don't have to make a formal choice. We can't keep a good girl from marrying. The girl can't afford to wait so long," the Empress Dowager said slowly in a low voice, because the Empress's gentle face looked better. Unless the girl he liked was too young, like Xiao Wanru, she would not be marriageable even after 3 years. In this way, the Empress Dowager felt more and more satisfied with Xiao Wanru. Otherwise, after 3 years, the Empress Dowager felt that it was not a good thing to let her grandson wait for such a long time in vain. Even if her grandson was satisfied, the Empress Dowager was not very satisfied. At this time, she was wholeheartedly thinking about Chu Liuchen's health and his marriage. She felt that it was not bad to imitate Chu Liuchen. It was not too late to marry a girl who would be marriageable after 3 years. Chu Liwei, Chu Liuzhou and Chu Liuchen were the same age, and now they were only 15 years old, so there was no need to rush. As for the youngest Chu Liuxin, he was a child. A 13-year-old child didn't know how to choose a concubine. It was too early, too early. What about those girls I liked before? The Empress's face turned pale. She had liked a few girls in private and also secretly passed a message to them. Forget about the girls I liked before. They will be old in a few years. Those who haven't reached the age of engagement are more suitable. The Empress Dowager waved her hand. She would not forget that she wanted to hold a concubine selection banquet for her grandson before. Most of the girls who came were interested in Chu Liwei and Chu Liuzhou, which made her very angry. Her grandson was so good, but he was despised by others. The Empress Dowager even had an idea that since she despised her best grandson, she should not think about marrying into the royal family. At that time, all the girls who entered the palace were young ladies from aristocratic families in their prime. There were no girls who were too young. It was better to get rid of this group of girls who despised her grandson. But there are a few girls who are really good. The Empress was shocked by the Empress Dowager's willfulness. She stammered for a while and said clearly, "There are some girls who are really good. I think they are suitable for Prince Yu and Prince Zhou. If they are willing to wait, they can wait, but they may not be chosen." The Empress Dowager waved her hand impatiently and said, "You can leave now. I want to rest for a while." After that, she stood up with the help of a palace maid and went to the inner hall to rest. The Empress was left alone in the hall. She stamped her feet and turned to leave. She had to find the Emperor. What was going on? It was not the royal family to go back on their words. How could the Empress Dowager be so capricious? In the Imperial study, hearing that the Empress wanted to see him, the Emperor put down the booklet in his hand and said, "Invite the Empress in." The empress was well-behaved and would not take the initiative to come to the imperial study in the past. A eunuch went to invite the empress. After a while, the empress came in respectfully. She first bowed to the emperor and then got up. "Empress, sit down first." The emperor said lightly, "What's the matter?" "Thank you, Your Majesty. I have something important to discuss with you." The empress was not in the mood to sit down and chat at this time, so she said hurriedly, "What's the matter?" The emperor frowned. Prince Yu, Prince Zhou, and Prince Chen are all 15 years old. Although Prince Xian is young, he is 13 years old. This is a good time to choose concubines. This kind of thing can't be completed in a short time. There are rules for choosing concubines for a period of time. After the selection, the engagement, and the ceremony will be held after the engagement. It will take at least 1 or 2 years. The empress said with a serious face. "Shouldn't you discuss this matter with mother? What's the use of telling me?" The emperor did not understand what the empress meant. His face darkened and he said unhappily, "Your Majesty, this matter was originally discussed with Imperial Mother." Imperial Mother also agreed and said that this matter needs to be slowly chosen. This concubine had previously taken a fancy to a few and had secretly sent people to investigate them. This concubine was afraid that it wouldn't be good if they were engaged too early. However, Imperial Mother just said that this matter is too early and should wait for a few years. The Empress said with great grievance. What she meant by this was that she had already spread the news. It was not appropriate for her to go back on her words now and damage the royal bearing. Mother wants to postpone it? The Emperor thought for a moment and asked. Yes, just now she said that she wanted to postpone it. Before, Mother meant to choose early, and she had chosen before, but she didn't choose. In order to increase the strength of her words, the Empress mentioned the previous concubine selection banquet. It was indeed chosen, and it was not only once. The first one was chosen for Chu Luchen alone, but the later one was chosen for all the princes. However, Chu Luchen had an accident at that time, so the concubine selection banquet was not settled. In the end, no one was chosen. Since there was an example and they suddenly didn't choose, the Empress believed that the Emperor would carefully consider this matter. The credibility of the royal family couldn't be undermined. In this case, let's hold another one. Spread the word that if no one is chosen, we can wait to choose wives for the princes. The Emperor thought for a moment, then picked up the memorial at hand and continued to read it, while saying casually. Chapter 468. Your Majesty, how can this kind of thing be handled like this? The Empress shook her body and said anxiously. As soon as she finished speaking, she knew something was wrong. The Emperor threw the memorial in his hand on the table, making a loud sound. There was silence in the imperial study, and the eunuchs and palace maids all shrunk their necks tightly. Your Majesty, what do you mean? What do you think I should do? How is your plan going? The Emperor raised his head and his cold eyes fell on the Empress's face. The Empress was so scared that she knelt down with a plop, and her back was cold. Your Majesty, I'm sorry. I'm afraid of disappointing the officials. Your Majesty, you think so much. You almost consider everything for me. You refuted the Empress Dowager's idea, and then refuted my idea. You alone can be the Empress Dowager and me. The Emperor's eyes were as sharp as a hook, and he looked at the Empress with a bit of scrutiny. The Empress gave a sorrowful cry and her eyes reddened. Your Majesty, this concubine doesn't dare to criticize you and the Empress Dowager. This concubine's feelings for you and the Empress Dowager can only be expressed by the heavens. How can you say this concubine? The Emperor didn't speak, but his eyes still fell on the Empress's face. The Empress didn't dare to move, but slightly trembled, and her whole heart was in her throat. After a long time, the Emperor calmed down and said, Your Majesty, get up. Don't talk about my mother's affairs in the future. The palace maids trembling on the side hurriedly stood up and helped the Empress up. Your Majesty, I'm sorry. The Emperor stood up and bowed his head, not caring about his weak legs. Go and hold another banquet. You don't need to choose anyone. Let's see after a period of time. If you like someone, look at him in private first, and then report to me when it's time to choose. The emperor buried his head in the memorial again and waved his hand. I'm leaving. The empress retreated step by step. When she reached the door, she turned around and walked out. When she reached the door, her legs suddenly became weak. Fortunately, a palace maid quickly helped her to stand firm. The empress took a deep breath and suppressed the fear in her heart. She had really crossed the line at that moment. She crumpled the handkerchief in her hand into a ball and slowly loosened it. She could not do anything for the time being. Nyang nyang. The personal palace maid saw that her face was still pale and hurriedly whispered with concern. The empress dragged her slightly tired legs and slowly walked forward. She had been too hasty just now and lost her composure. The consort selection could be done 2 or 3 years later. She could secretly communicate with the family she chose. Even if it was not necessarily the position she wanted to marry into her son's mansion of Prince Zhou, she could still choose another position. Of course, there were a few families that were older in age, so they could just pick the younger ones from their mansions. Thinking of this, she felt that it was not irreparable. She brought a few palace maids and eunuchs to her own palace. She still had to discuss some details with her son. For this last banquet, the audience was wider. Everyone from 11 to 15 years old could be looked at. The focus was on those around 11 years old. Xiao Wanru left silently, but it attracted a lot of people's attention. The news that Duke Xing's mansion recognized the orphan girl, who was the daughter of the former heir of Duke Xing and Infanta Qinghua, spread among the aristocratic families. Many people were waiting for the first appearance of the newly recognized 5th Miss Xiao in front of others. However, they were told that the 5th Miss Xiao was filial and would go to the Yuhui nunnery to observe mourning for her deceased biological parents for 3 years. For a time, the entire aristocratic family circle in the capital praised the 5th Miss Xiao. However, another piece of news caught many aristocratic families off guard and disrupted many people's plans. Therefore, many people no longer cared about other families' business. The Empress and the Empress Dowager were going to hold the biggest banquet. It was said that they were going to choose the princesses for the princes. However, some people secretly said that this time it was just a formality and they might not be chosen. They said that the emperor's children were still too young and it was not suitable for them to get married at this time. When this rumor came out, many young ladies of the right age and their parents were very anxious. Many people aimed at Prince Yu's mansion and Prince Zhou's mansion. One of the two was the eldest. The other was the most likely to be the legitimate wife. As for Prince Chen's mansion, everyone thought that they should stay as far away from it as possible. His identity was originally embarrassing and he would definitely not be able to get a good result. In addition, he seemed to have a short life, so no one was willing to send their daughter to the fire pit. As for the last one, Prince Exen, he still had a childish temper. According to his appearance, even if he grew up, he would not have any thoughts about the throne. Or even if he had thoughts about it, it would be impossible. However, he should not be wrong to be an idle king for a lifetime. Some of them still liked him, at least he was stable. This time was the last chance for many young ladies of aristocratic families who had reached the age. Since it was the last chance, they must seize it. For a time, the clothes and accessories for women in the capital city immediately became scarce, which led to the business of a large number of shops in this field. The brand of Butterfly clothing shop was also really established with this wave of business. When the news reached the mountain, Xiao Wanru was sitting and listening to scriptures with Mingqiu nun in a black robe. She closed her eyes and put her palms together, looking extremely peaceful. Yujie came in and gently pulled Xiao Wanru's sleeve. Xiao Wanru opened her eyes slightly and saw Yujie winking at her. She stood up slowly, walked out of the Buddha hall, and then stood in a corner. "Miss, they are going down the mountain." Yujie glanced to the east. That was the direction where Xiao Yanru lived, which was opposite to the west where Xiao Wanru lived. There was a long distance between the two courtyards, but it did not prevent Xiao Wanru from meeting the maid sent by the first Miss Xiao on the first day she came here. She said that the first Miss Xiao was going to conceive a painting and had been in the silence room these days. But after coming out of the silence room, she would meet Xiao Wanru and her sister. Her words were extremely polite and she also brought gifts. She said that the two sisters should help each other in the nunnery for a period of time. But until now, the two of them had not met, and now they were going down the mountain in a hurry. Since the two of them were destined to meet, Xiao Wanru had already sent Yu Jie to keep an eye on Xiao Yenru. "What's the urgent matter?" Xiao Wanru asked calmly. She was not surprised by the result. Xiao Yenru had never been easy to deal with. Now Xiao Wanru was dressed in an extremely simple way. From the outside, she looked like a nun who was cultivating with hair. Her long hair was tied up with a very ordinary white jade hairpin. At this moment, her watery eyes blinked twice and she looked to the east. It said that old madam of the mansion is ill. She is seriously ill and urgently asked to go down the mountain. Yu Jie reported in a low voice. Old madam of Duke Xing's mansion was ill, and she was seriously ill? Then she wouldn't be the only one he wanted to recruit. "Have you asked when I will come back?" Xiao Wanru said softly. "I don't think she will come back. I heard that she has moved away all her things, including the paintings in the silence room. It is said that she will serve old madam well. She may come back at any time, or she may not come back. She should take all the things she should take with her." Yu Jie had secretly inquired about it from several nuns who helped to deal with the miscellaneous things. Xiao Wanru smiled softly. As soon as she went up the mountain, Xiao Yenru was bound to leave. Both of them were daughters of Duke Xing's mansion, but she went to the nunnery to observe filial piety for 3 years. As for Xiao Yenru, she came here to learn painting. It seemed that she would stay for about half a year at most. Previously, in order to say that she was bent on going up the mountain to learn painting, she specially built a silence room in the courtyard on the mountain and announced that she would not go down the mountain until she succeeded in learning painting. However, compared with her reputation for learning painting, there was a big gap between her reputation for learning painting and her reputation for filial piety. If the first Miss Xiao continued to stay, it would only make people feel that she had fallen behind and even be criticized by others. After all, Xiao Wanru's parents were also her aunt and uncle. Her cousin was observing filial piety. How could she still be in a good mood to sit here and watch the wind sweep away the clouds, laugh and write leisurely? Sure enough, she found an excuse to go down the mountain after a few days. At this time in the last life, Xiao Yenru still learned painting on the mountain and went down the mountain in the summer, instead of leaving in a hurry at this time. Although old madam of Duke Xing's mansion had an old problem, if she was properly treated, it was impossible for her to be seriously ill all of a sudden and have Xiao Yenru personally serve the decoction to the bed. She happened to be in the same situation. It was not the best time for them to meet now. At this time, the capital city was full of people. After Xiao Yenru left the Yuhui nunnery, it would be difficult for her to stay alone. It was impossible for her to maintain the image of an extraordinary talented girl as she had in the last life. In the end, even if she entered the palace and became a favored concubine, she still made people feel that she was noble and elegant. "I heard that her silence room is built very well. Go and ask her later if I can use her empty silence room." Narrowing her watery eyes, Xiao Wanru reached out to pull her black clothes and said with a faint smile. Xiao Yenru's courtyard was the best courtyard in the entire Yuhui nunnery. It was renovated based on the original foundation of the Yuhui nunnery. Just like the room she lived in, and great elder princess helped to renovate and design it so that she could live in it. Naturally, it was different from other ordinary incense rooms, and its location was not the same as that of other pilgrims who rarely stayed for a night. And great elder princess only renovated it a little because she was in a hurry. It was said that Xiao Yenru's courtyard and the silence room inside were repaired for a full 1 or 2 months. Outsiders only thought that the first Miss Xiao came up with this idea because she admired Pushun Nun's painting skills, but in fact, she had made preparations long ago, so she let the first Miss go up the mountain. Her courtyard and her silence room were the best in the entire Yuhui nunnery. "I'm afraid that Pushun Nun won't agree," Yu Jie said with embarrassment. Chapter 469. It was Pushun Nun's first disciple, Hui Qing, who came out from behind the wall. She was in her 20s and a little thin. At this moment, she looked at Xiao Wanru unkindly. Since they met on the mountain, she had been looking for trouble with Xiao Wanru. Seeing that she was rude to her master again, Yujie wanted to get angry, but Xiao Wanru reached out to stop her and motioned for her to step back. Hui Qing Nun, I was asking the servant girl about Big Sister. I heard that Big Sister went down the mountain because of Grandma's illness. I was worried, so I missed listening to the scriptures. Xiao Wanru said softly. What are you talking about? If you didn't listen carefully, then you didn't listen carefully. Fifth Miss came up the mountain for filial piety, not for sightseeing. As a punishment, Fifth Miss will not have lunch for a while. Clean this hall. Hui Qing raised her head and said sharply. Yujie was so angry that she almost wanted to jump in. This person named Hui Qing was obviously looking for trouble on purpose. Our fifth miss is so young and doesn't have the strength to work without food. How dare you talk back? Don't think that I won't do anything to you just because you are a servant girl of Duke Xing's mansion. At the beginning, the servant girls of the first Miss Xiao were very well behaved. It can be seen that the servant girls are like their master. My words are the words of my master. If you feel that you can't stay here, you can go down the mountain. The mountain gate is over there. It's only a few steps away. Hui Qing sneered coldly. After saying that, she spat at the corner fiercely. After that, she ignored the master and the servant girl and staggered away. After taking a few steps, she suddenly stopped again, turned her head, looked at Xiao Wanru sarcastically, and said, Fifth Miss, if you have no patience, don't fish for fame here. After saying that, she turned around and left. Yujie was so angry that she trembled all over and almost wanted to pounce on Hui Qing and scratch her hateful face. She grew up in the nunnery, but she had never seen such a hateful nun. Xiao Yinru's servant girl was a good servant girl, but her master's servant girl was not a good servant girl. Who was she scolding? Well, what's there to be angry with her? She was just instigated by others. Xiao Wanru pulled Yujie's sleeve indifferently and said with a smile. Did you listen to Miss Xiao's instigation? Yujie gritted her teeth and took a deep breath. Of course, she knew that she could not make trouble on the mountain at this time. Of course, Xiao Yinru didn't order it herself. Those good maids could have done a better job, and no one would suspect that she did it. Xiao Wanru said calmly, Go and inquire about the silence room first. Just go and ask Pushun Nun directly. You don't have to ask her disciples of the Hui generation. She couldn't see through this nun. She seemed to be a very noble person, but why did such a noble person accept such mean and harsh disciples? It was not only Hui Qing, but also her other disciple Hui Ming. She was not a good person after coming into contact with them. She was an expert in the eye but an expert in the bottom. When she saw the powerful ones, she would flatter them. When she saw the weak ones, she would step on them. It was said that she had done this kind of thing many times. Her reputation in Huishi nunnery was not good. Although Yujie hadn't been here for a long time, she still knew this kind of thing clearly. She was born in a nunnery, so she had a lot of advantages. I'll go and listen right away. I'll secretly bring you some steamed buns later, Yujie said skillfully. Then she reminded her worriedly, when the preaching is over, they will all leave. Miss, don't work first. Wait for me to come and do it. Since she entered the Yuhui nunnery, Hui Qing and Hui Ming had made trouble for her miss a lot. From time to time, they would make her hungry. Miss was growing up, so she couldn't stand hunger. It doesn't matter. You can go first. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and nodded. The two of them separated. Yujie went to find out what Master Pushun had said, while Xiao Wanru entered the main hall and continued to listen to the scriptures. This time, it was the presiding nun of the Yuhui nunnery who talked about a Hinayana Buddhism. When she finished, 2 hours had passed, and the nuns left one after another. Only Xiao Wanru, Chu Lu, and Mingqiu Nun were left. Xiao Wanru stayed. Chu Lu walked to the place where the preaching had just been. She took the cushions and stacked them up. Mingqiu Nun's face darkened. What's going on? Are they going to punish you again? They said that I went out to inquire about the first Miss Xiao just now and violated the rules of the nunnery. They asked me to stay and clean up. Xiao Wanru smiled indifferently and stood up to help Mingqiu Nun up. Mingqiu Nun was now living alone in this nunnery, which was arranged by Chu Luchen. Although she was living alone and had just come here, all the nuns in the Yuhui nunnery did not dare to look down on her. She lived in the nunnery because of her excellent medical skills and the reason to treat Prince Jin. Even this matter was agreed by the Empress Dowager. If she were not a nun, she would not have been arranged to live in the Yuhui nunnery. Nun Huiqing is really hateful. She and Huiming always make trouble for Miss and seem to want to drive Miss down the mountain. Miss is here to observe mourning and has agreed to be filial for 3 years. If she is driven down the mountain at this time, how will she have the face to see others in the future? Even if she makes trouble in the Yuhui nunnery, it will be inconvenient for others to see her. Chu Lu said angrily. She had felt uncomfortable for a while when she saw Huiqing and Huiming, but she also knew that she could not make trouble. Hearing Mingqiu Nun's question, she could not suppress her anger. If it were not for the fact that Miss had not allowed her to say it, she would have complained to Mingqiu Nun. Especially make trouble for your Miss? Mingqiu Nun asked in confusion. She was also a person who had cultivated in seclusion for many years. Although she had not reached a profound level of cultivation, she was basically not likely to be provoked by others, so her temper was much calmer. Yes, I heard that Huiqing and Huiming had a good relationship with the former First Miss Xiao, and they kept praising her. Chu Lu complained discontentedly. Well, I'll deal with this matter. I'll talk to the abbess about it. Mingqiu Nun understood and said immediately. It seemed that this matter was not handled by the master of Huiqing and Huiming, so it was more appropriate to see the abbess directly. Nun, you don't have to bother the abbess. I heard that the abbess doesn't care much and is devoted to Buddhism. Occasionally, she will preach scriptures to the nuns of the Yuhui nunnery. At other times, she is studying Buddhism and Buddhist scriptures, ignoring all kinds of things happening in the Yuhui nunnery. Xiao Wanru said with a smile, reached out to pull Mingqiu Nun's robe and shook it. Don't worry, they won't be arrogant for long. Although the people in the nunnery did not dare to offend Mingqiu Nun, she had just come here. Xiao Wanru did not want Mingqiu Nun to offend anyone here. I can see the abbess of the Yuhui nunnery. Mingqiu Nun had always been very good to Xiao Wanru and indeed regarded her as her heir. What was more, when something happened in the Jingxi nunnery, it was Xiao Wanru who mediated and saved the entire Jingxi nunnery. She heard this from Xiao Xuanzi, who served Prince Chen after she entered the capital city. From this point of view, Mingqiu Nun was very grateful to Xiao Wanru. Jingxin Monastery was also the place where she became a monk. For so many years, she had regarded Jingxin Monastery as her home and had long regarded the nuns in the monastery as her family. Don't worry, nun. If I need your help, I will definitely ask for your help. Xiao Wanru said with a smile. As her watery eyes turned, even the light black robe could not hide her. She couldn't hide her charm and elegance. Mingqiu Nun sighed, reached out to touch Xiao Wanru's head, stood up and walked out. This child had always had her own ideas. Looking at her current appearance, she seemed to have a well-thought-out plan. In that case, let her be. He would also get someone to keep an eye on her, lest this child suffered a loss. Not long after Mingqiu Nun left, Yu Jie came back. She had gone to the kitchen to get a few steamed buns, and now she took them out for Xiao Wanru. Chu Lu poured a cup of warm water. Seeing that her miss was eating steamed buns, which were made of white flour, Yu Jie's eyes turned red. She had to stay in this place for 3 years. If Huiqing and the others made things difficult for her for 3 years, how could she live with it? She and Chu Lu didn't care about it. They were originally from poor families. However, although Miss didn't eat very well, she couldn't eat steamed buns 3 times a day. Moreover, judging from the current situation, she couldn't even eat steamed buns. Xiao Wanru took a steamed bun, took a bite, and stood up. Miss, where are you going? Yu Jie picked up the small package with the steamed bun and asked. To the front. I heard that there are a few religious rites in the front today. Let's go and see if there is anything we need help with. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly, as if she didn't see Yu Jie's slightly red eyes. Miss, you can go after eating first. Besides, we haven't cleaned up here yet. Chu Lu also stood up, looked at the uncleaned hall and said angrily, "In a while, Hui Qing and Hui Ming will come to make trouble for us again. Maybe even Mrs. Dinner will be gone." Thinking of the time when Yu Jie failed to steal a steamed bun and Miss really starved for a whole night, Chu Lu was so angry that she was so mean and not afraid of being blamed by Buddha. Because Miss had too many taboos, she almost always listened to them and accepted punishment, which coaxed them to forget who they were. On this point, Chu Lu felt that her Miss had done something wrong. She should have given them a show of strength when she came up, and she wouldn't have been bullied everywhere now. Her Miss had not been so weak before. "If you don't clean up, we'll go outside to help. We'll find a big religious rites." Xiao Wanru winked at Chu Lu playfully, kicked a rush cushion aside casually, and said to Yu Jie, "Let's kick this place into a mess together before leaving." After that, she kicked another rush cushion into a mess. There were many nuns who had listened to the sutras just now. When they left, they directly left them behind and did not put them all aside. A few Chulu had put them away, and some Chulu didn't have time to put them away. The nuns' sutras were also neatly placed in rows and columns, which were well organized. However, after Xiao Wanru kicked them, they were immediately in a mess. Chulu Yu Jie, kick a few of them over and throw some of the paper wrapping the steamed buns here. Let's go outside to help others with religious rites. Xiao Wanru squinted at the two maids and said with a smile. Chapter 470. When it came to the playboys in the capital city, no one could forget Prime Minister Zhang's son, Zhang Lanjue. It was not that this child Zhang bullied men and women and fought in the street all day long. This child Zhang had some special hobbies. He liked to collect some strange things, but he didn't just like antique calligraphy and paintings. Sometimes, he even went to the brothel to collect the round fans of the brothel women. It was said that he now had the round fans held by the 4 top courtesans in the capital city when they won the championship in the past. These hobbies had pushed this prime minister, who was said to be extraordinary, to the level of a playboy. Today, his mother was doing a ritual for his deceased grandmother. She specially chose a large Buddha hall. Mrs. Zhang took her son, daughter, and others to bow respectfully from time to time as the nuns chanted. Only this child Zhang rolled his eyes a few times and aimed at an incense burner in front of the Buddha platform. He was so anxious that he scratched his ears and cheeks. It was because he had been collecting incense burners recently. And it was this kind of old incense burner with octagonal corners. The small incense burner on the Buddha platform over there was just right. It was about the same size as the ones he had collected before. If he took it back, he would definitely be able to put it together into 10. It was also perfect. At this time, the hall was very quiet. There was only the sound of chanting. Everyone was bowing respectfully. If they made any noise at this time, they would definitely be punished by their mother. Of course, Zhang Lanjue did not dare to move. Although he was envious and only wanted to sneak the incense burner back, he could only look at it eagerly. With great difficulty, she managed to endure until noon. She eagerly persuaded her mother to rest in the side hall, where a vegetarian meal had already been prepared. Mrs. Zhang and Miss Zhang had been bowing for a whole morning. They were also very tired, so they did not eat first. They drank a few mouthfuls of tea and rested. Seeing that her son was about to go out, Mrs. Zhang asked with a sullen face, "Where are you going?" Of course, she knew her son's strange hobbies. At first glance, she knew that it was not a good thing. "Mother, take a rest first. I will go and light a few more incense sticks for grandmother. When I left just now, I saw that the incense sticks over there seemed to be going out." Seeing that he had been discovered, Zhang Lanjue replied seriously and sincerely, as if he really couldn't bear to see the incense sticks in front of his grandmother go out. "Brother, this is the Yuhui nunnery. Don't mess around." His sister, Miss Zhang Qilan, did not believe that he would do anything good and reminded him, "Sister, what are you talking about? Of course, I know that this is the Yuhui nunnery and all the nuns are here." A child from an aristocratic family like me has to avoid arousing suspicion and can't be intimate with nuns. Zhang Lanjue became more and more serious, and because of his sister's suspicion, he looked a little aggrieved. You were only at the side hall? Madame Zhang was not fooled by her son and continued to ask. Of course, where else can I go? Mother, don't worry, I understand, nothing will happen to me. What I heard before has spread throughout the circle of the aristocratic family's young masters in the capital. They all think it's a joke. I'm afraid it's not true, so they're just saying it. Zhang Lanjue knew what his mother was worried about and hurriedly said. What is it? What is it? Brother, tell me about it. Zhang Qilan's eyes lit up and she immediately became interested. It seemed that there were other rumors outside, which were still about this nunnery. What can it be? It said that a noble young master came to the Yuhui nunnery and took a fancy to a little nun in the Yuhui nunnery. When they met privately, they were seen by someone. After that, the little nun followed the noble young master to return to the secular world. How can you take this kind of thing seriously? Zhang Lanjue said indifferently. Hearing that he said this kind of thing in front of his sister, Madame Zhang was so angry that she picked up the cushion on the chair behind her and threw it at him. She scolded, "How can you say this to your sister?" Zhang Lanjue dexterously avoided the cushion and said with a bitter face, "Mother, it's not me who wants to say it. It's my sister who wants me to say it. Now that I have said it, you still hit me. If you want to hit someone, you should hit my sister." Brother, I just asked casually. Who asked you to say that? Zhang Qilan rolled her eyes and pushed all the blame to her brother. Although she was really interested, she couldn't show it in front of her mother. Otherwise, her mother would ask her to copy the women's precepts and women's rules later. Thinking that her brother made trouble all day long, he only punished him by kneeling down and scolding him a few times. She couldn't come out of the boudoir every day. Even if she said a few words that were a little too much, she would be punished. Zhang Qilan felt that it was better to be a man. If she were a man, she would be much more promising than her brother. At least she wouldn't become a famous playboy. The whole Zhang family's face had been lost by her brother. Hey, why is it me again? Zhang Lanjue saw that his sister cunningly pushed the blame to him and said anxiously, "If you want to go, go quickly. Don't lead your sister astray." Seeing that he was going to say something else, Madame Zhang immediately shouted harshly, for fear that he would say something inappropriate again. This was the Yuhui nunnery. There were many people going in and out. She couldn't let them listen to her son's inappropriate words. Yes, yes, yes. Mother, sister, I will go right away. If you are hungry, you can eat first. I am not in a hurry. Seeing that his mother let him go, Zhang Lanjue was overjoyed and hurriedly waved his hand. For fear that Madame Zhang would stop him again, he strode to the side door. The hall was very quiet. All the people of the Zhang family had left, and so had the people of the Yuhui nunnery. In front of several large Buddha statues, there were not only large incense burners, but also a small incense burner on the side. The smoke in the large incense burner was curling up, and the small incense burner was also misty. But to Zhang Lanjue's astonishment, the small incense burner he had taken a fancy to just now was gone. How could it be gone? He had been staring at it just now, and it had been there. Zhang Lanjue really didn't believe it. It had only been a while. Even if it had flown away, there would be traces to be found. He squatted down at the place where the incense burner had been, turned over the hanging yellow cloth, and searched carefully. There was no incense burner, but there was a trace of ashes, and there was a trace of the incense burner being put down. The ashes were still on the way. Someone had taken the incense burner he had taken a fancy to, and it was at his own Dharma meeting. Zhang Lanjue was furious at this realization. He had always been the one collecting other people's things, but no one had collected his things. Following the traces of the incense burner ashes, he turned to another side door. Suddenly, he heard a woman's voice inside. Although Zhang Lanjue was a bastard, he knew that there was a difference between men and women. It was not convenient for him to go in at this time, but he was reluctant to give up his incense burner. It was about to be perfectly assembled. How could he bear to leave? In fact, this hall was reserved by the Zhang family today. The side hall on one side was used as a place to rest. His mother and sister were resting now. The side hall on the other side was the place where the things needed for the ritual were moved over. There were many things in it. Zhang Lanjue had also come to see it before. At this time, the people brought by their mansion were resting in another side hall. Was this the nun of the Yuhui nunnery? Suddenly thinking of the previous rumor, Zhang Lanjue was even more reluctant to act rashly. If he really brought a young nun back, his mother would break his legs. How desperate he was to fall in love with a nun, and he even had a private meeting with a nun. From the bottom of his heart, Zhang Lanjue felt that the rumor could not be trusted. He had thought that it might be that the little nun was not at ease and took a fancy to the young master. She took the initiative to set him up, so that he had to take her down the mountain. Thinking of this, Zhang Lanjue's heart trembled, and he didn't dare to easily open the side door leading to the side hall. Although the door was unlocked, he pushed open the side door leading to the side hall. "Is everything ready?" A pleasant voice of a girl came from behind the door, and there was a feeling of relief. "It's all ready. Miss, don't worry. It's all neat and tidy. Even if Hui Qing comes to check, she can't say that we didn't work hard." It was the voice of a servant girl. It sounded like the name of a nun. He didn't understand why a miss from an aristocratic family was so afraid of a nun. Moreover, it seemed that the nun had been making trouble for the miss inside. "We came to the mountain to cultivate. We can't go against the wishes of the monks. Only when we are well-behaved can we observe filial piety for our parents." The girl's voice was very elegant, which made people know that she was a well-educated and polite miss at first glance. "Miss, you have suffered a lot in order to cultivate well. But look, Hui Qing and Qingming don't intend to let you cultivate well. Not only do they deliberately push all kinds of things to you, but they also find various reasons to drive you down the mountain. They say that you are making trouble by yourself. Obviously, they don't want to see you well. Miss, I'll go back and tell old madam. Let's see if they dare to bully you again." Another servant girl's voice was slightly different from the previous one. "Forget it. If things get out of hand, it will be bad for our reputation." The miss's voice was soft and calm. A servant girl said angrily, "Miss, you are too kind. You always want to calm things down, so they are more and more insatiable. Chulu, don't talk about it. Let Miss eat a steamed bun first. It has been baked on the incense burner for a while and is a little warm. It's just right to eat it now. If you don't let Miss eat, how can her body stand it?" The other maid sighed and said with a hint of sadness. Zhang Lanjue, who was listening outside, felt that he understood everything. For a moment, he couldn't help but be angry. How could there be such a nun? It was obvious that she saw that Miss had too many scruples and didn't want to ruin her reputation for cultivating in the mountain. That was why she dealt with this Miss so badly. The Yuhui nunnery had a good reputation outside, and it was the largest nunnery in the capital city. There were always some misses who liked to come here to live for 10 days or half a month as a way of cultivating in seclusion. In the past, Zhang Lanjue's sister, Zhang Qilan, had also lived quietly on the mountain for half a month. When she came back, she saw the meat on the table and ate 2 bowls of it in a row. At that time, he thought that the Yuhui nunnery had treated his sister harshly and said that he wanted to find the Yuhui nunnery to judge. Later, he was stopped by Zhang Qilan, who put down her bowl and said that she was afraid of eating vegetarian dishes and steamed buns every day on the mountain, so she ate a little more now. His sister became like this after she went down the mountain after eating, but the miss here still didn't give her food. How much hatred did she have? Chapter 471. As a playboy, Zhang Lanjue still had a sense of justice. When he heard this, he almost kicked the door in, but after thinking about it, he turned back. He was a man, so it was not good for him to fight in the nunnery. He had to ask his sister to come over. "Brother, what are you doing? Mother asked you to come back quickly." Before he took a few steps, he met his sister Zhang Qilan with a servant girl. Seeing that Zhang Lanjue did not come back, Mrs. Zhang was really worried, so she asked her daughter to come over and have a look. Come here, come here." Zhang Lanjue stretched out his finger and pressed it on his lips, making a gesture of silence. He pointed to the side door where the sound came from, carefully walked over, and waved to Zhang Qilan. Seeing her brother's sneaky movements and hearing the sound from the side hall next door, Zhang Qilan also became interested. The brother and sister stood behind the unclosed door with the servant girl and stretched out their ears to listen. Huiqing nun, you asked our miss to tidy up the Buddha hall over there. Our miss has already tidied it up and cleaned it up. You don't let our miss have lunch. We saved these steamed buns for her. It has nothing to do with you. Why are you still so aggressive? Do you really think that our miss has no one behind her? Yu Jie stood in front of Xiao Wanru and said sternly with sharp eyes. During this period of time, Yu Jie had been following Xiao Wanru and had always shown a weak and incompetent look. At this moment, she flew into a rage and glared at Huiqing fiercely, which shocked Huiqing. But she immediately felt that she was disappointing. Even the miss was so weak. What else could a servant girl do? The first Miss Xiao also said that it would be better to let her make trouble and make it so that she could not stay in the Yuhui nunnery. She had been in mourning for 3 years. Seeing that she escaped down the mountain after only a few days, she would have no face to say that she was in mourning for 3 years. Oh, what's the matter? Do you want to rebel? I just don't let your miss eat it. What's wrong? She said that it was cleaned. When I came here just now, it was very dirty. As for this steamed bun, why should she eat it? As a miss, she has no lunch. How can you 2 servant girls have lunch? Haven't you heard of sitting together? Huiqing had been very powerful in front of Xiao Wanru these days. Seeing that Yu Jie dared to refute her, she immediately sneered. Was she afraid of a little servant girl? He was trying to suppress Yu Jie with words. Zhang Lanjue, who was listening by the side, was so angry that he almost laughed. The nuns in the nunnery were really excellent. Her words were not only unpleasant to hear, but she also used the Imperial court's sitting method with little knowledge. She was not afraid of implicating herself. Huiqing, you're such a bully. Our young miss is not someone you can bully just because you want to. Chu Lu also stood up with a face full of anger. Could it be that she wants to overturn the heavens? If you have the ability, don't meditate in our Yuhui nunnery. If you don't like it, go down the mountain by yourself. There is no one in our Yuhui nunnery to stop her. She doesn't work in our nunnery, but she still wants to eat for free. In her dreams, Huiqing said in a strange tone. After saying that, he looked at the steamed bun in Chu Li's hand, which she had only taken 2 bites of, and slapped it hard. Chu Lu was caught off guard and cried out in alarm. The steamed bun in her hand fell to the ground and rolled twice. Immediately, the snow-white steamed bun was stained with black stains. These are our nunnery's steamed buns. Our nunnery does not raise useless people, Huiqing said confidently. Chu Lu was so angry that her face turned pale. She gritted her teeth and her whole body began to tremble. Huiqing, I have no grudge against you in the past or recently. When I went up the mountain to cultivate in seclusion, you found trouble everywhere and wanted to drive me down the mountain. From time to time, you told me to get out of the mountain if I couldn't stand it. I don't think I knew you before. You kept being mean to me. You threw all the dirty and messy work to us, master and servant, and didn't give us food. Whose intention was it? Xiao Wanru calmly pulled Chu Li's sleeve and motioned for her not to be angry. She turned to Huiqing and asked contemptuously. This question was very direct. It did not have the usual harmony is valued tone. It was almost straight to the heart. Huiqing was choked by the question, but then she was embarrassed and angry at the same time. She was actually frightened by a weak young lady. Could she still show off in front of others in the future? It doesn't matter whose idea it is. Anyway, don't think about staying in the Yuhui nunnery. If I tell you to get out, you should get out quickly. Don't come back in the future. Our Yuhui nunnery doesn't welcome you. If you insist on staying here, this kind of thing will happen every day in the future. I'll see how long you can hold on. Huiqing was so angry that she spoke indiscriminately. Her thoughts were suddenly exposed, and she felt a mixture of shame and anger. Zhang Lanjue, who was at the side door, couldn't stand it anymore. He reached out and poked his sister's arm. Zhang Qilan also felt that she couldn't stand it anymore. This was clearly an evil nun bullying people. In the past, her mother had said that the nuns of the Yuhui nunnery were good. They were all quiet and had the air of Buddha. Listen to what she had heard now. They were not human at all. After exchanging glances with her brother, The two siblings immediately understood each other's thoughts. Zhang Lanjue kicked open the unlocked side door. Zhang Qilan rushed in with her servant girl and said loudly, "Where did this evil nun come from? How dare she talk big like this? Are all the nuns of the Yuhui nunnery bullying guests like this?" Zhang Qilan's voice was not low. When she heard Huiqing's words before, she felt the same way. At this time, she stared straight at Yuhui, who was stunned to see the side door being kicked open, and said, "Go and call the master who presided over the religious ceremony just now. Let's see if all the nuns of the Yuhui nunnery are like this." The servant girl turned around and ran to the main hall outside the main hall. After a short break, the nuns of the Yuhui nunnery also left the main hall, but there were still 1 or 2 guarding outside the main hall. "Hey, who are you? Who asked you to meddle in other people's business?" Huiqing was shocked. At this time, she came to her senses and immediately flew into a rage. She didn't know who it was. She followed Xiao Wanru's footsteps and didn't know who was doing the religious ceremony here. But no matter who it was, no one could interfere in the nunnery's affairs. Someone will step on the injustice. Your nunnery actually bullies the miss who lives in the nunnery to cultivate. I didn't expect that the good reputation of the Yuhui nunnery is also fake. Zhang Lanjue was afraid that his sister would suffer a loss, so he sneered. "Yes, there is such a thing. This is the first time I have heard of it. From what you said, there are many cases of bullying people in your nunnery, right? You let the miss who cultivates do the work, and it's dirty work. You don't even give her food. What do you think your nunnery is?" Zhang Qilan said loudly with her eyes wide open. She felt the same. Just now, her mother said that she should live in the Yuhui nunnery for a period of time to calm her temper. If she really lived in the nunnery, she would be bullied to death. Her temper was not so good. Maybe she would turn the whole nunnery upside down. At that time, her mother would blame her for not restraining herself. Thinking of this, Zhang Qilan suddenly felt that it was fortunate that she had discovered this kind of thing. Otherwise, when it was her turn, if she really made trouble, her mother would ask her to copy the women's precepts and women's rules 100 times. No, she had to help this miss vent her anger and let her mother know that the Yuhui nunnery was not a good place to go. The last time she came, she was lucky. At least she was not abused. This time, she would not be so lucky. It is said that the families of the miss who cultivates in seclusion have given her incense money. She doesn't live and eat for free. If she doesn't give the incense money, your Yuhui nunnery will not accept her. Zhang Lanjue put his hands on his waist and said, Huiqing was tongue-tied and speechless. "Huiqing, what the hell is going on?" An old voice came from behind. Everyone looked back at the back of Huiqing. 2 nuns came from the direction of the gate of the side hall. The first one was the one who spoke. Zhang Qilan's servant girl was leading the way in front. It was obvious that she had brought them here. "Master Puyu, when the abbess was preaching, 5th Miss Xiao was secretly gossiping with the servant girl outside. After I went forward and said a few words, she even talked back. I asked her to tidy up the place where the abbess was preaching. If she didn't tidy up, she also sneaked out here to steal steamed buns to eat. As soon as she saw someone coming out of the nunnery, Huiqing, who was in a weak position, hurriedly stepped forward to complain. Master, you didn't say that just now. You said that this miss must do all kinds of dirty and tiring work well. If she didn't do it well, she wouldn't be allowed to eat. The 2 servant girls were loyal and gave their lunch to this Mississippi. You even came over and kicked her steamed buns. You also said that if you couldn't stay here, you would go down the mountain. You didn't let her cultivate on the mountain. You also said that your nunnery doesn't raise freeloaders." Hearing Huiqing's inverted words, Zhang Lanjue couldn't stand it anymore. He stood up to testify for Xiao Wanru. He reached out and pointed at the steamed buns that were still rolling on the ground and said loudly, "Your nunnery is like this. Who else dares to come here?" Zhang Qilan also said with righteous indignation, "Puyu Nun, I have already tidied up the place where the abbess preached." Xiao Wanru walked to Puyu Nun. After standing still, she bowed calmly. "Nonsense, you didn't tidy it up at all." Huiqing cried out loudly. She was really not afraid of this matter. She had seen it just now. Not only was it messy, but it was also a mess. The paper dumplings were thrown everywhere. When we left just now, we tidied it up. If Puyu Nun doesn't believe it, we can go and have a look now. Yujie took a step forward angrily and stood in front of Xiao Wanru. From her vigilant look, it could be seen that she was afraid that the people of the Yuhui nunnery would do harm to her Mississippi. She didn't know how the Yuhui nunnery bullied the master and servants. They bullied them so much that they were in a state of panic. Let's go and have a look. Don't think that we are all messing around. We have 2 skins and can say whatever we want. Zhang Lanjue shouted loudly. Yes, let's go and have a look immediately. If we don't, we will have a guilty conscience. Will the Yuhui nunnery help this kind of evil nun? Zhang Qilan naturally followed her brother's lead. At this point, it seemed that they had to go. A few servants from Prime Minister Zhang's mansion came over and stood on the side of their young master and Mississippi. Seeing them quarreling, Puyu Nun had a headache. She nodded helplessly and said, "Let's go and have a look." At this point, it was not enough to convince the public if they didn't go and have a look. The group of people went to the hall where the abbess had preached. Along the way, they met some other pilgrims. The pilgrims didn't understand what had happened, so they followed them and walked forward noisily. Some busybodies even asked around while walking. The servants of Prime Minister Zhang's mansion naturally helped their masters. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.